about my thesis. And this is the longest research thing I've ever done. I essentially researched and wrote this over from probably February of 2019 to when I defended it in May of 2020. So I was working on this all through the summer as well. Mostly that was the research portion. I did not start writing this until February 2019. I had sections written, but January 2020. January 2020 is when I finally started writing this. My paper is significantly longer than a lot of other people's. We were only required to actually write 80 pages. Was like the minimum, I think, or even maybe that was the maximum. I don't know how many pages I wrote, but my entire thing is about 197 pages, and most of that is my corpus literally being printed in the thesis, because otherwise, and that's over 80 pages or something, which is insane. But this topic took me a pretty long time to figure out. Yeah, paper. Lots of paper. That's fine, amateur. You can go to bed whenever you want. I promise. That is totally fine. So, when I was trying to come up with a thesis topic, essentially, I just wanted to do something that I could talk to people about without boring them to death, or keeping them interested in it and it's not even just boring them to death, it's truly just helping them understand something. So I hate to say it, I picked a simple topic. I picked a topic that was simple enough for people to understand. And if that I walked up to somebody on the street and somebody said, "Oh my gosh, you're an Egyptologist, what do you study?" And I said, "Well, I study ancient Egyptian dogs," then they hopefully will be like, "Oh my gosh, that's so amazing," which is usually the response that I do get. I do get a pretty positive response, and a very surprised response about when I talk about ancient Egyptian dogs. And I really wish I remembered exactly what got me onto this topic, but I just have a very vague memory of looking through, I believe it was the Journal of Egyptian Archaeology, and looking through it and finding essentially an article that said names of ancient Egyptian dogs. And I was like, what do you mean names of ancient Egyptian dogs? And it essentially was a list of some of the personal names that were given to dogs. And I found that extremely fascinating and extremely weird. I was like, what do you mean we have preserved dog names? And so that's where I started, and then it became a full-blown thing where essentially the rest of my thesis is I looked at every single depiction of a dog in ancient Egypt that I could find. I put them into a giant spreadsheet, and I looked for patterns. That's essentially what this entire thesis was. So, a brief summary of what we're going to talk about tonight. And I will say, if you don't want to listen to this, you can 100% go and read my thesis. It is on my website, MelissainDeNile.com. You can find it on my socials. I believe it's just under Dogs of Ancient Egypt, and then you can find a place to download the thesis and read it yourself. Again, it does have, because it is a thesis, it does have some scholarly stuff that anyone who's not within history academia, art history academia might not understand, but you can always feel free to email me if you have any questions. First, I'm going to start off with just a very, very brief history of the dog in the ancient world, and talk about the depictions of dogs, jackals, hyenas, and the African wild dog, and the differences, how the Egyptians portrayed them and how they look in real life. Then I'm going to define and show you all the different quote-unquote breeds, or as I'm going to call them, breed types, that we see in ancient Egyptian art when looking at dogs. And then I'm going to show you my corpus and explain how I divided them into different types of iconography based on what they look like, based on the context of the scene, and so far. And then we're going to conclude with some textual sources from ancient Egypt that mention dogs. And at the very, very end, I will allow you guys to pick and choose any number, and I will talk about that depiction of a dog, which essentially is going to be my TikTok series that is going to be coming out starting next week. Is essentially I'm just going to pick some random images of dogs and make a TikTok about them and then proceed forward. So, oh, sorry. I was supposed to say that. All in these images of dogs. Here are some of the images. I have so many images. Most of my corpus has images. Some of them are very bad images. As you can see, I've zoomed in on some of them, but some are very professional because they come from museums. But the vast majority of my corpus, we do have actual images. Only a handful of things I could not find. So, humans likely bred the domesticated dog called the Canis familiaris from tamed wolves called Canis lupus, somewhere around 11 to 16,000 years ago, probably somewhere in Asia or Europe, kind of around that Eurasia, Near East area. And then these dogs probably entered Egypt through either the Sinai land bridge, the Red Sea, or even Somalia, somewhere around 6,000 to 7,000 years ago. Oh, thank you. Sorry. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. Canis lupus, vulpus. Is that Lupin? Remus Lupin? Remus Lupin is just, he's just, Remus, both Remus and Lupin mean wolf, I think. So he's Wolfie McWolfson or something. I know that was a meme on Tumblr a real long time ago. Oh, Fantastic Mr. Fox. I still haven't seen that. I need to watch. Maybe I'll watch that this weekend. I was talking to somebody. Was that you, Amateur? I was talking to somebody else about that. About how I was talking to my friend Andrea. That's what it was. So they probably came into Egypt around 6,000 to 7,000 years ago. The earliest evidence that we have of domesticated dogs in the Nile Valley comes from the Neolithic site of Mariame Beni Salama in the Delta around 4500 BCE. So again, that's around 7,000 years ago. Around 6,000 years ago. These were medium to large dog remains found with other domesticated animals, probably sheep and cattle. Throughout ancient Egyptian history, dogs were portrayed in figural art, relief carvings, textual sources, and the burials of dogs. Although these are talked about in passing, there's been very little discussion on the function of the dog in art. And I had a whole section, which I started typing, about previous scholarship, which is a pretty standard thing to do in a thesis like this, where essentially you just go over all of the previous scholars who have talked about dogs or anything related to dogs. I typed all that up, and I realized that was absolutely way too long and was going to bore you all to death. So I took that out. But a lot of different authors have talked about dogs, but they've never really... There's only been one or two distinct books talking about how these dogs are portrayed as symbols. That's fine, Star. You've barely missed anything. I'm just giving everyone a background of the history of dogs. But I'm so glad you're here, Star. So essentially, a lot of different scholars have talked about dogs from ancient Egypt, but no one has really kind of tried to go at it so strongly and so straightforward. Most of the time, like, they're talking about dogs within the entire animal world. There are very specific articles about dogs depicted in this period are meant to be a sign of the order defeating chaos. But again, those are very good theories, but they're only put on one tiny like sliver or percentage of all of the different depictions of dogs. So no one has really tried to kind of do this overarching look of how dogs were portrayed in ancient Egypt, and not exactly if they were portrayed accurately, but if the images that we are seeing are more symbolic, or are they representing an actual physical dog who lived in ancient Egypt. This was not an answer that I was able to firmly confirm, but I essentially, and this is maybe jumping the gun a little bit, but the conclusion of my thesis was that we cannot look at dogs in ancient Egypt one way only. You cannot assume that if a dog is there, that it is actually going to be representative of a real dog that lived in ancient Egypt. You have to look at the context, you have to look at the tomb owner, or the owner who is depicted on the stela, or the owner who owned the tomb where the dog was buried. You have to look at all of the factors to try and determine if this dog was real, if this dog was a symbol, and what that symbol then further would be. And so like the two big conclusions of my thesis was you can't just look at this all one-sided. There are so many different multifaceted ways where a image of a dog could be so many different things. And then the other side note that one of my main questions for this thesis was trying to tell everybody that, hey, I know everybody thinks that the ancient Egyptians loved their cats, but they love dogs more. And I will fight anybody who will make that argument. And I'm hoping by the end of this thesis, end of this presentation, any of y'all who have said that about ancient Egypt will agree with me, essentially. This might just be totally petty because all of the PhD students, all the other master's students, and all of the professors, I mean, not even joking you, everyone in the department had a cat, if not more than one cat. I literally think there was only one person who had a dog, but everyone had cats. And it was my kind of pettiness being like, the ancient Egyptians actually loved dogs more. Because I truly believe that the only reason the public thinks that ancient Egyptians loved cats is because of all of the votive cat and ritual burials from the last period of ancient Egyptian history. Which, I hate to say it, wouldn't that mean that they didn't like cats if they were just mass killing them anyway? Hot take. But this is what my research has told me. This is not just a opinion. This is what my research has told me. Okay. So they have been portrayed in a vast array and variety of depictions. This is actually it looks like kind of a coin, but it's actually the top of a gaming piece. This is literally an axe head, and then this is just a figural wall painting. This obviously being a copy, a reconstruction. But they could be portrayed in so many different ways and on so many different materials as well. And without looking at all of them, you can't make a judgment on this dog is obviously the aggressor. So is this dog. But then you look at this dog's not aggressive. You can see that it has its, oh my god, this thing is so cut off. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to fix this. I forgot about this. Okay, that's better. Sorry guys, I forgot about that. Oop. That was also apparently a tourist marketing strategy used by temples. Huh, interesting. That makes sense, honestly. That makes better sense in that case. All right, so now let us look at the difference between the different canine species and some other species that modern scholarship has mixed up because they look very similar in ancient Egyptian art. The first is the jackal. Oh, Mark. 12 months. Oh my God, Mark. Wow. That's amazing. Thank you so much for continuing your subscription for a whole gosh dang year. Amazing. So, I want to make this brief because I am not a biologist. This is my least favorite part of this thesis. That's fine, Mark. I felt very, very unqualified writing this section of my thesis, but my professor made me do it. He made me put all of the, what was I playing? Assassin's Creed? That's like amazing because I remember nothing. And that's not a dig at you, that's a dig at me because I know nothing. Yeah, it was probably Assassin's Creed. That makes sense. I'll have to go look back and find which one it was because I have all my streams. So that'd be amazing to see. So a lot of ancient Egyptian art looks very similar, even though it is very standardized. And so sometimes there is this overlap, especially with 5,000 years of changing the standards. So this is the part sorry, I lost my train of thought. It's Kenny! Hi, Kenny! You haven't missed anything. You haven't missed anything. We're doing like a very long intro and stuff, but I'm so glad you're here. How was the rest of your day? I popped in on Kenny's stream while I was sitting in the parking lot, waiting for him to meet because I was too early to my doctor's appointment. So I popped in on Kenny's stream anniversary. How did the rest of your stream go? Did you have fun? Did you drink a lot of champagne? I have to figure out if I can get the animated emotes to actually work on my screen. I haven't figured that out. Okay. All right. And feel free. I cannot control myself until saving questions until the end. So like, don't feel bad if you want to ask a question in the middle. It just might take me a second to keep my train of thought. I do have a very long outline that I'm following, so it won't be fine. Took a break and napped hard. I'm gonna go back live. Oh, that's so nice. Maybe we'll pass on the raid. We'll see when I end because this is a long lecture. Oh, you got crushed. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I know. We're playing Forewarned tomorrow. Luckily we don't get crushed in that game that bad. I don't play a lot of games where like I just get absolutely crushed because I don't play like anything that's on like a live server where I can play with other people that I don't know. So I think it's because I'm too competitive. I'm too competitive and too scared to play one of those games because I would just get so mad. I can barely handle it through Assassin's Creed when we keep dying. Okay, so this is the first animal that has been mixed up all the time with dogs, and it is the jackal. And yes, this is what a real-life jackal looks like. This is a golden jackal. Sorry, backtracking 1 second. This part of my thesis, I had to, because my professor was like, these images have gotten confused and you need to reason why you're not talking about these types of animals. He made me go into so much detail. I had to look up like biology books to like get a source to give the scientific name for all of these animals, and it was like the most annoying part of my thesis because I was like, I am not qualified. Like, I have imposter syndrome. I always think I'm underqualified, but I'm very underqualified to be talking about the evolutionary like track of dogs and all of this stuff. And it's just like, ugh, it's just so hard. I haven't played in so long. My main character for killer is disabled. Oh no, I love that little sad cow. Is that your emote? He's so cute. Oh, he's so cute. He's so sad. Yes, the African. I had to go so deep into the African golden wolf. I don't remember anything about it now, but I remember what you're. I remember talking about. I remember reading paper after paper on that because I just needed some gosh dang tiny source or like footnote or something. But I think this is slightly important because I want to show you like why I don't include some images that everyone's like, this is a dog, and I'm like, this is not a dog. And this is also really important because I find that a lot of people think Anubis is a dog. Like, a lot of people think Anubis is a dog, and Anubis is not a dog. He is a jackal. So the main ones I'm going to talk about are the jackal, the hyena, and the African wild dog as well, but also wolves and foxes look very, very similar as well. I didn't show any images of the wolves or foxes. The wolf really is literally only the image on the right. There's not very many other images of wolves in ancient Egyptian art. So there are, because obviously ancient Egypt was thousands of years ago, we're not exactly sure what types, what subspecies of jackals were alive and were in existence during that time. But the main theories are the golden jackal, or the Canis enthusiast, and the Egyptian jackal, the Canis aureus lupaster. And Egyptian artists tend to depict the jackal with more triangular ears, longer bodies, and straight bushy tails. And when they were painted, they were almost completely black, just like our big boy Anubis here. Absolutely completely black, no color variation at all. But there is a very interesting conundrum in that what actual jackals look like, there is not a single subspecies of jackal in ancient Egypt or in real life that is actually fully black. There is no species of jackal that is fully black. So when we look at Anubis, we essentially are kind of suspending our disbelief of what actual jackals look like and are going with a more symbolic that Anubis is probably black for the reason that the color black was a symbol of regeneration, and rebirth and fertility as well, because ancient Egypt's name, Kemet, means the Black Land, and it is a land that is constantly refertilized by the Nile floods. So here is this depiction. So this is obviously the real life jackal, and here is a depiction of what other people have called a dog, but this is very distinctly a jackal. The pointy ears, the very like short at the base and then gets bushier out. It literally looks exactly like this jackal's tail. But this right here, which although you can't see it, with this thinner tail, this is a dog. This is 100% a dog. He is twice the size also as this jackal. Jackals, strangely enough, although they look like wolves, they are related to wolves, not wolves, foxes. A jackal is closer related to a dog than a fox, which is very weird and interesting, and I don't understand evolutionary biology. So that's that is an opinion that I've heard, but based off of my research, Anubis is almost exclusively a jackal. He is never really meant to be a wolf. Wep-Wawet is the one that goes back and forth between being a jackal or a wolf. I don't know about Duamutef, so I won't say anything about that. But this god here, Wep-Wawet, who looks pretty much identical minus the light color, is another god called Wep-Wawet, and essentially most of the time we see Wep-Wawet, and I'm going to tell you, we do not have a lot of depictions of him versus Anubis. Anubis is probably one of the most depicted Egyptian gods of all time. Wep-Wawet, very, very rare. When we have Wep-Wawet, he is usually either depicted gray or white, with some versions of him in black as well, meaning that's why we're a little on the fence if he is actually being depicted as a wolf or just a light colored jackal, just based off of purely, honestly, he looks closer to a real life jackal. Maybe Anubis is this more religiously like revered animal, so he gets that symbolic color of black, while Wep-Wawet does not really need to be because he's not the god of rebirth or regeneration going into the underworld and stuff. So maybe he is actually supposed to be a jackal who has this kind of color, because there weren't really wolves in ancient Egypt for the most part. Their artistic jackals always look like greyhounds with big heads to me. Oh yeah, just wait. I will show you greyhounds. I will show you greyhounds. There are some dogs that look exactly like modern greyhounds to me. But yes, I do agree. A lot of the jackals, this is a very unique jackal, and it's more natural and not as I can't think of the word for it. It's not that it's unnatural, but more idealized. Anubis is typically idealized. This jackal is very not. I will also point out, I know I mentioned this in another one of my streams, usually, not all the time, but some of the time when you see Anubis in his human man form, it is actually not Anubis, it's actually a human priest wearing a mask of Anubis. Not in this case. This case comes from one of the, I can't remember which one of the Ramses tombs. But whenever you, so he's holding one of the pharaoh's hands. When you see Anubis if you see him in another context, like if you see him over a coffin, it's actually more likely that he is a human priest wearing a animal mask, literally to portray Anubis, because it's usually just for a special ritual. Welcome, Empty Barrel on TikTok. Look at this baby. I'm in love with these dogs. These dogs are so cute. This is a wild African dog, also known as a Lycaon pictus. Look at those ears. I believe this is a baby, but this is the one I picked up for my thesis, because I just was like, this picture is just so cute. It's just so cute. And I will say, a lot of the other African wild dog photos that I found that I could get without not without citing it, but with citing it, were all like angry ones with their teeth, and I was like, I want a really cute one, especially because I wanted to portray the ears. So the Egyptians depicted the African wild dog with semicircular ears, the long body, and then a short but very stocky tail. And they most often appear in pre-dynastic art, and honestly, they really don't appear anytime after that. They really, whether or not they went extinct in Egypt, or if they all kind of migrated more to a deserty area or savanna area, not exactly sure. But they are very, very rarely depicted outside of this earliest period of ancient Egyptian history. And so this is something called, which it is called incorrectly, this is a ceremonial palette that is called the two dog palette. But these are not dogs. These are African wild dogs, or Lycaon pictuses. So this is, in my opinion, this is the Lycaon pictus palette, which I know is a hard word to say, but I don't care, because they're not dogs. You can very, very distinctly see the really, really big semicircular ears and this enormously long tail. And they're not dogs, especially because on this palette are two other dogs. Actually, it might even be three. I think there's a third one right here. I am streaming it over on my Twitch, Empty Barrel. MelissainDeNile is the link. So if you'd like to see the images that I'm putting up on the screen, you can head over there. So yeah, so there are several dogs as well on this palette that are like attacking these animals. But here and up here are these two African wild dogs. Also, these are called, are they called sauropods? They're these very strange animals with really long necks. They're obviously mythical animals, but I cannot remember if they're called sauropods or something. I think they might be sauropods. Sorry, another side note. Okay, so the last animal that we'll talk about is the hyena. So the hyena is not a canine. The other two are technically part of the canine family. A hyena is not part of that. It is literally the scientific name for a hyena is a hyena. And dang, they are a little scary. They do not look nice. Or maybe that's just the Lion King the Lion King movies. Serpapards. Thank you. I was very close. Serpapards is what those names, the names of those long-necked animals are. But the hyena they're much larger than previous canines and any sort of other modern canine. Egyptians mostly depict them in hunting scenes where they are being hunted, or in captivity of some sort, like this image on the right. And I'm not going to go into great detail about it. If you guys want to learn more, I will send you the articles. But there has been a very large, obviously in a very tiny circle, large debate on whether or not hyena meat was a delicacy in ancient Egypt. Actually, I could talk about this on our food lecture. I'm writing this down. We could talk about this on our sorry, I'm writing this down because I can go into much more detail. Yes, I believe that is true. I believe hyenas are closer related to cats than they are to dogs or wolves or anything like that. So there's a whole big debate, essentially, which is hysterical. There were 3 articles. Essentially, one woman came out with an article saying that the ancient Egyptians loved hyena meat, and in this case, an image like this is actually 2 humans force feeding a hyena to then make it plump, to then kill and eat the meat. And then somebody else came with a literal reply article. This is like a crazy ass Twitter feed. And they were like, no, actually, they're not force feeding it. They're doing something different. And then that first woman wrote another article and being like, you're stupid. That's not what this is. And then literally just repeated her argument. Like, didn't even give any like kind of stronger rebuttal. She just repeated the argument that she had given in the first article. But yeah, it's back or forth. We have these images of what apparently is force feeding of hyenas, whether or not that is for eating the meat, because like, obviously like some animals were force fed, like in some cases fowl, like lots of fowl are force fed to make them plumper. So that seems like what's happening, but they're not exactly sure. Absolutely crazy. I don't want to get into it. I'll talk about that on my ancient Egyptian food lecture. That just makes way more sense. Okay, so now let's go and talk about the different breeds of dogs. And again, we cannot tell exactly what breeds these dogs were. This is thousands and thousands of years ago. There was the possibility that the ancient Egyptians were breeding dogs, though it's not exactly clear. A lot of articles I read talked about these types of dogs with the curly tail, and they just say in the article that the ancient Egyptians probably bred these dogs to have their curly tail. But then they give no context, no backup, no sources as to why they think this. So there is a assumption essentially that the ancient Egyptians might have been selectively breeding dogs to give a particular appearance. Technically, we have no evidence of this. I'll show you a greyhound. Don't worry. Hi, Jesse James was a cowgirl. Yes, breeding, I don't understand. This is another portion of this thesis that I'm like, I don't understand how modern breeding works, and I feel bad that I'm writing about this because like I just don't really understand the concept of it. Hi, MTS Barrel. Oh, thank you. I'm telling you guys, you ever want to see just some cute images? I'll just send you some cute images of dogs. Always. I have so many. Absolutely so many. So at the very end of my lecture, I'm literally gonna let you guys just tell me a number, and I will just pull out a number from my corpus, and we'll look at the image that I have, and we'll talk about it. So, but there will be plenty of images throughout the lecture. So if you can't wait till the very end, don't worry. I have tons of images. And I'm trying to publish it onto my website. It's kind of a waiting game, unfortunately. I ran out of time and I hated the way that I was doing it. But I essentially, I was trying to publish my corpus so that people could see it. If you do go to my website, I guess I don't have. If you go to my website, MelissainDeNile.com, it's under blog on that. You can download my thesis. It does not have my entire corpus of images, but it does have a lot of images at the very end. So if you just want to look at cute images of dogs, you can just download the PDF and look at it. And I also starting next week will be doing a series on my TikTok, showing off all the images of these dogs and talking about it. This is honestly, I wanted to present this to my Twitch followers because this is my thesis. This is what I spent the majority of my graduate school career doing. And I talked about it with my Twitch followers and they all wanted to see it. So I'm giving the presentation first, and then I'll be able to spread even more information on my TikTok. All right. So again, we cannot tell what breeds these are, and that's why I call them breed types. And essentially, just by going off of the look of the images, we are comparing them to modern breeds. That does not necessarily mean that's what they are, because I hate to say it, the ancient Egyptians were a little stubborn bunch, and they had an art canon. And a canon is essentially a set of rules and standards for how art was supposed to look. And the images of these dogs could just be simply, this is what we wanted a dog to look like at this point. And we have nothing, unfortunately, to like tell us, yes, this is what a dog looked like from that time period. We have some burials, I will talk about them, but unfortunately there's not a lot that we can go on from those. But this portion of my thesis could have been completely just like thrown out, essentially saying, we have no evidence that this is what ancient Egyptian dogs actually looked like in real life. So, who knows? But this first one, we'll talk about the burials at the end, but from what I remember, the majority of the burials that we have found were found in the 1920s. Or found very early, before any kind of DNA work was done. I know, Mark, we talked about the ones found in Nubia, because there was some book that we had. I think it's the Egyptian bioarchaeology book has that article in it. Dogs of the El Deir. Those are some of the most recent remains we found, and I don't know if they've done any DNA work on those dogs yet. It makes sense when you point at other art canons like the Greeks and making everyone all rippy and abby. Yeah, exactly. And even with the Greeks, it changed throughout it. Then you have the contrapposto, and the contrapposto was all these fleshy people, and like the I love contrapposto. It's like one of my favorite words. The like leaning and stuff. Like over time, when you have a civilization that is going for hundreds, if not thousands of years, the art canon and how they are going to portray what they think is the most beautiful is going to change. And I mean, honestly, the world is still like that. We don't think it is, but it is. The standards of beauty change. It's this is a total tangent, but I really like Bridgerton, but I saw a very interesting article about how the one character in Bridgerton, Penelope? No, not Penelope. The girl from Dairy Girls, who ends up, who's in love with her friend's brother, how she is a plus-size woman, and she is in this world that they have created of Bridgerton where everyone is so skinny, and she has essentially made fun of it and been fat-shamed both on-screen and off-screen. But there was an actually very interesting article that in that time period, being plus size was the norm, and being plus size was the sign of royalty, that you could afford food, which is a very common thing throughout ancient Egyptian history, throughout lots of ancient histories. If you could afford food, only the rich people were fat. They could show off their wealth by how much they could eat. And it's very shocking that Bridgerton this poor actress is getting so much hate when literally she is what the standard was, and everybody else is like sickly, should look poor. Slightest tangent. There is nothing in its significance about what it means for a dog having a tail like that. There's no benefit of hunting or something to do with the environment. Not that I know of. Nope. Hi, Ash. Hi, how are you? Welcome to the stream. I'm teaching everyone about my thesis, Ancient Egyptian Doggos. I also should have said everyone needs to be spamming as many dog emojis from all of the different like Twitch people that you follow. Like I want to see all the really fun dog emojis, emotes and stuff. I love it, Ash. Honestly, I love it. Yeah, beauty standards change. And so even with just ancient Egyptian history, beauty standards have changed throughout that. So this is the first one we'll look at. This is the Chesham Hound. So this comes from one of the words for ancient Egyptian dogs, which is Chesham, and it's spelled second T SM. I forgot. I'll have to show you. That's a cat. Never mind. It's a cute cat though. I will accept. This is probably the one time I won't accept any cats though. Because as I explained earlier, Ash, the whole reason I did, not the whole reason, but one of the sub reasons I did this thesis was to show people that the ancient Egyptians love dogs more than they love cats. So we're very, currently during this stream and this lecture, we are very anti-cat. I am not anti-cat in general. I do love cats. I am mostly a dog person, but I do very much want a cat first before I get a dog. But in this current moment, we are anti-cat because the ancient Egyptians don't like cats in comparison to dogs. They do like cats. They just don't like them as much as dogs. Okay, so this is the Chesham Hound. They are depicted consistently with the erect ears and the coiled tail. Usually very thin body like this, very thin little legs. And when they are painted, they range from a yellowish to a grayish color, or a malted brown with or black on white. So essentially spots, black or brown spots on a white body. So the one that they have been compared to in modern times is the modern Basenji. And honestly, looking at these two, they are exactly the same, with the exception that the ancient Egyptian one is a little skinnier, but that is obviously something that can be bred over time. So these dogs look exactly the same. It's absolutely, honestly shocking how when I picked these images, because these are the images from my thesis, I picked images very specifically that looked very similar because I wanted to like really get it along. Rat dog, it looks like to me. Yeah, they are very small. I didn't talk about size a lot. Oh, Jessie James is a cowgirl. Thank you so much for subscribing. Deal with it. Thank you so much. Very true. Yeah, everything I'm going to talk about here, we always have to remember exactly what Ash said, that everything could be a stylistic choice. We have absolutely no idea what was a stylistic choice and what the actual dog looked like. And so we always have to just kind of put that like that disclaimer essentially all over it, that who knows, this could all be an ancient Egyptian artist just saying, F you, this is not what they look like, this is just what I wanted them to look like. What if they were cats with the... I will say cats are very stylistically different, mostly because they're always sitting. You never really see a cat walking. That's one tiny thing. But to me, the tail looks to be wagging away from the viewer. I think it is interesting, yes. I do like that, because that is a very short tail. Other tails in other images, they are more curled up like this actual Basenji, but that's very cool. The height, oh my god, I should have even talked about this. Yes, so ancient Egyptians, so if you see this, so obviously this is from a bigger image. This is the owner's knee, and his knee is like bent, and then this is a person right here. So the ancient Egyptians had a concept called a hierarchic scale, where on an entire like tomb wall, the largest person is the most important. So scale was huge for them because not everything was to scale to other people. So this person is obviously much more important than whoever this person is. But I would argue in this case, because he is on the same line as the human, that the dog is at the same scale as the human, if maybe a little smaller. I haven't heard of hierarchical scale in forever. Honestly, you probably haven't heard it except for my first. Oh wait, no, that wasn't in the hieroglyphs lecture. I haven't talked about hierarchical scale on here. I've talked about it on my in my class that I taught. Yes, so this dog, 100%. This dog is 100% more important than this person. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, you heard it in undergrad? Yeah, I was gonna say, no, the last time I talked about this, I thought it was on stream, but it's actually on my class that I taught. So when I was filming all the videos and stuff. What is this? Is this hair? Okay, sorry. I'm just like... So I'm a very hierarchical style. The dog is a higher status than the small dude on the right. Yeah, exactly. So I'm not exactly sure if, well, obviously it's about the human. We're just gonna say it. I know this. It's from a tomb. It's from this guy's tomb. So this guy is definitely the most important in this room. The dog is probably semi-important because he is standing next to him. But this guy is least, if not even, there's probably more. All right. And also, so the last final thing is that this depiction of a dog, so this standard, is almost exclusively only seen in the Old Kingdom. So this is where we go, where we're looking at these breed types, and we cannot exactly tell if these breed types are, again, the standard of beauty for a dog during that time, or if over time they bred dogs to look differently. So this is where it's weird. Oh, Jesse James, don't worry, we'll talk about the collar as well. This is called a coil collar. I'll talk about it in a little bit. Ugh, sorry, my chair is sliding back. Mark, you should. There's not a lot of mummies left, but you should, please. I would love to. Like Punt, which no one knows what it was because it was so common knowledge. Yeah. Oh yes, Empty Barrel. Let's go right now. This is the Greyhound one. Although this particular dog is not a Greyhound, and I'll tell you why. This is called the Saluki Hound breed type. Obviously, this is a real Saluki Hound right here. And then this is an image. This is a super interesting image. This is actually just a small little blue tile with this painting on it. And this is actually in Australia. It was one of my later discoveries to add to my thesis, but this is in, I believe it's is it the Nicholson Museum? I think it might be the Nicholson Museum in Australia. But yeah, hierarchical scale. Apparently this dog is either absolutely enormous or it is 100% more important than its handler. And it really, without any other context, I have no idea. Yes, exactly, Ash. Yeah, exactly. This breed type appears in the Middle Kingdom and then the New Kingdom. They are usually shorter, heavier a little bit, with a shorter muzzle, lop ears. So again, not the pointy ears, but these lop ears is the actual technical term for what those ears are called. And a long curved tail that is either kind of curled up like this or just kind of goes out like this. They call it a saber-like tail. Can we ever tell the gender of animals? Yes! Let me quickly go back. Here's a pregnant one. I will say I don't know if I've seen any male ones that I can distinctly tell are male. But that's a female one. She's got boobs. There are some other ones I think I have later that we can show. But now that I'm thinking about it, I haven't seen really one that I remember as distinctly a male dog. I'll have to remember. Bye, Emptiest Barrel. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, being more important than your handler is 100% possible. Bye, Ash. Thank you so much for stopping in. Okay, so this is, when they were painted, they had a much wider range of colors from black to tan, cream, or white with brown or black patches. Hi, Pod. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, I could see them being prize breeding females, as you can always tell who birthed the pup. Yeah, Oh, thank you so much, Ash. Makes me smile. So, these are the types that are most often related to a modern greyhound. But interestingly, they're not called the greyhound type dogs. They are often called the Salugi type dogs, and that is mostly because the Salugi dogs come from Africa. And so that's kind of where it's like, okay, we're a little bit closer to that. So, but there are actually two words that are totally used interchangeably, and people don't realize that they are different. There is the Salugi. I'll type it in the chat. There's the Slough. The Salugi hound and the Saluki hound. They are obviously subbreeds. They're extremely closely related. But the Saluki hound is a breed that comes from Morocco, typically, and always has this smooth coat. It does not have any long hair. It always kind of looks exactly like this. A Saluki is a breed that have longer fur, and they have typically really longer fur, like an Afghan dog, but they do have a straight hair variety which wouldn't have the hair. So they would be specifically a straight-haired Saluki rather than a normal Saluki. So that's a very interesting question, Pod. I don't believe so, at least in the modern breed. The ancient Egyptians very frequently depicted dogs with spots, but we just went on a very long rant on whether or not this was the style or if this is actually what dogs looked like. And it's something that, unfortunately, I don't know if we'd ever be able to figure out. But I don't believe any of the modern Saluki or Salukis have spots, or even greyhounds really have spots. No, I guess greyhounds sometimes have spots. Sometimes they have that beautiful color that like Great Danes have, with like, honestly, kind of like this, like kind of these large, splotchy. Yeah, very true, Jesse James. Yeah, very, very true. So again, these ones typically show up from the Middle Kingdom and then the New Kingdom, and then anything after the New Kingdom, you kind of get a hodgepodge of them, but tending to be closer to these types. The Chesham, the Chesham hounds really are only in the New Kingdom. You don't see anything like this anytime later, essentially. So here are some of the other types that we have, and they're not as popular, but they do appear. Some of these are my favorite, probably. These are probably one of my favorite. But these are our little dachshund slash corgi types, where they all have really short legs. And most often they have the pointy ears, making them more corgi than dachshund. But there are, like, some of these are very interesting. Hi, Charlie's Dragon. Oh, look, it's a dog. You're so, I hope it's a dog. I think it's a dog. But hello, welcome. You have not missed much, I promise. We just did a whole long background, but we're gonna get to my actual corpus and actual stuff very soon. So yeah, so we have these kind of shorter legs, mostly pointed ears, the curly tail, and these obviously are line drawings of actual tomb walls. A lot of these are actually colored or painted, and they're very common depicted with white and red, so white body, reddish spots. So I believe this one. Also, this one's name is Anku. This is one of our named dogs, which we'll be talking about in a bit. But his name is Anku, which means essentially life, which is really cool. And then down here, this is a very specific, it's actually a relief carving. So it's actually all rolled out. It's supposed to go around in a circle on a mace head. And these are depicted like more mastiff-like dogs, and lions, obviously, in between. But these dogs are very chunky. They are very big, look very strong. They all have little collars, very short lop ears, kind of like a pit bull ear, kind of going like that. And so they're not exactly like other dogs, and even their tails. This one's tail is very short, not curly, not long like these ones. So we've kind of detected them as like a mastiff type. What sort of animals would they be hunting in the time period, and would they be doing any herding? I will show you. One of my whole sections is on hunting, so I will show you images of that and talk about that. Herding, I presume that they did, but honestly, there's not any depictions that I have that I would distinguish as herding. Essentially, most of them are hunting because they look very violent. Herding, yeah, no, not that I can think of. I do have other images of dogs with just animals and no humans, like not indicating that they're hunting, but that's not essentially, not that anyone that I can remember are herding, I guess. Bobbed tails? Nah. All of the dogs I've seen all have long tails. I have not seen any short-tailed dogs, really. I would imagine small dogs like this might have been used to catch vermin like rats. Yeah, very, very much so. Oh, oh my God, I forgot I took that out. Oh God, okay. I was supposed to say this like at the very beginning of the lecture. When I was talking about previous scholarship, the one thing that previous scholars have always talked about when it comes to dogs is they always talk about how they're pets. And a couple scholars have been saying, back up with that word just a little bit. And again, this is just very similar to how I've talked about how we can't judge any ancient person or even any other culture for some of their decisions just based on what we know and what we think is normal. We cannot know if they were pets. We cannot know what the emotional relationship was between a dog and a human. It's very, very difficult for us to determine that without, I think, pretty much without textual writing telling us that. And there are a lot of implications, and we can tell from certain things that, yes, they did care about these dogs, but could they be seen as exclusively a pet? Unlikely. So when if I am going to talk about them being pets, I talk about them being personal animals, because that leaves the fact open that they could be working animals as well. They could be hunting, they could be protecting. Honestly, herding is a possibility. They could be doing any sort of job. There are speculations that some of these dogs were police dogs. I don't know. But we cannot put the assumption that they were exclusively pets, essentially. And again, dachshunds were made for rabbit hunting. Yes. And Mark is correct, badger hunting. I will tell you a quick story about that. Dachshunds are my favorite type of dog. I love dachshunds with all my heart. I've never had a dachshund. I want so many dachshunds. When I was in 8th grade, I don't remember the exact context of this. I think my teacher asked us. I could have sworn my teacher asked us what our spirit animal is, which is not a question that should be asked anymore in schools because of like native heritage and all that. But I think what I said my spirit animal was, a dachshund. Not essentially meaning that I thought I was a dachshund. Simply saying that dachshunds were my favorite animal. And she didn't know what I said at first, because I say it dachshund, or dachshund is like how you say it in like closer to German, not really German because I don't speak German. But she didn't really understand what I said, and I was like, oh, like a wiener dog, like a hot dog. And she was like, why would you be that? Is what she said to me. This teacher was absolutely horrible to me. And I said, I completely panicked, and I didn't know what to say. And I said, well, like it means like badger dog, and all I got out of it was badger dog, and she was immediately like she just started laughing, and she explained that the reason she started laughing was because all she did was imagine me digging in the dirt hunting for badgers. And I was like, what the hell? Why is this woman awful to me? Yeah, sausage dog is another thing we say. We do not call them hot dog dogs. That was, I couldn't remember the word for sausage in that moment. I think I had a friend of mine who was using it for rabbit hunting. Rabbit hunting. Is a cork practical for any job? Besides the possibility of it digging and getting deep into it, I have no idea. I don't know. If you look up most breeds, you can usually find a reason that they were originally bred for. Most of them are working in some aspect, but I'm sure there are dogs that were just bred for the looks. Oh, you're right. That one is male. Thanks, Jesse. You're totally right. Anku is definitely a male dog. You're not digging the dirt hunting for badgers. You're digging the dirt hunting. Yes, now I am. But in 8th grade, was I doing that? No. Yeah. I hated that teacher. She was awful. We called her Miss Lizard because it was very similar to her real name. All right. So the last thing we'll talk about for this is ancient Egyptian dog collars. So, there are multiple different types of ancient Egyptian dog collar. I didn't go into very great detail about it, but these are kind of two of the main types. We have what we looked at before, which honestly, this is a really bad image. So this is a coiled, what we call a coiled collar, and it's usually wrapped around the dog's neck a couple times. It's usually essentially one long, probably leather cord wrapped around the dog's neck a couple times and then tied into a loop with either a loop and one terminal or a loop and two terminals, like these dogs. And then here you can see these guys are attached by leashes. But then, and again, as you can tell by the looks of these dogs, this is an Old Kingdom depiction of a Chesham dog with the curly tail that is literally like a pig corkscrew tail and the pointy ears. And then these two dogs are the Salugi hounds with the lop ears and the long tails. And so you can see that collars also changed with time, indicating that probably either the technology for collars got better over time, which is always a possibility, or the standard of what a pretty collar has changed over time. And so the secondary collars are just these band collars, and it looks like they were tied together kind of with a knot. This one is pretty. It's kind of decorated. Oh yeah, you're right. I cannot believe I did not talk about this in my thesis. Jesse, I am going to have to talk about this eventually and picking out which ones are male and female, because most of them are genderless. But you are totally right. Some of them definitely do show if they are male or female. You have helped me with my thesis, Jesse. I might have to cite you if I ever rewrite it or actually publish it. Sorry. Thank you. Yes. Dogs could have a gender. You don't know how they think. The sex of the dog. Yes. You don't know how a dog identifies, Mark. We don't know what's inside their head. Who knows? These dogs might want to all be non-binary. Let them be non-binary. Yeah. Sorry, I gotta chug this water. I'm getting a headache. Ooh. Oh my god, Charlie, you must make me spit up my water. Yep, nothing like sex and dogs on Twitch. 100%. Alright, so I think, did I put the image in here, the next one? I did! These are probably my favorite artifact of all time, and I cannot wait to go see them in person. These are two preserved dog collars. And they are beautiful. They are the only dog collars that have been preserved. We have two, so I realized when I was reading through my thesis, there are evidence that some collars were found on some buried remains, but where the collars are, I have absolutely no idea. These are two, yes, they are made out of they're both completely made out of leather with decorated images. This one is covered with horses, This one it's very, very hard to see, but there's actually a hunting scene with dogs killing animals on there. You can kind of see the back end of this dog. But these are found in the Valley of the Kings, KV 36, the tomb of I never know how to say this guy's name, My Harry Perry. And there are some great images about them. I believe they're in the Takrir Museum. If they're getting moved to the Gem, I'll have to find out because I have to see these in person because I'm in love with them. But even better, I will write how you spell his name. There you go. It's in KV 36. So My Harry Perry is a very interesting person. He was buried in the Valley of the Kings, which indicates that he was important to the royal family, but he was not royal himself. There are theories that he was actually a Nubian man who, yeah, sorry, it's not My Harry Perry, it's Maher Perry. Thank you, Star. I wrote an extra I. My Hair Pear. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I'm telling you, this is one of the hard. I can read a lot of ancient Egyptian names. This is one of the hardest ones for me to read. I don't know why. I can't. I need to picture what his hieroglyphs are. If I could picture the hieroglyphs, I think I'd be able to pronounce it better. But it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to read the English translation of it. So there are theories that he was a Nubian man who moved to ancient Egypt and eventually rose in the ranks. And actually, they're not 100% sure whose pharaoh he was ruling under. He was probably ruling under multiple, but it's in the New Kingdom, so I believe it's one of the Thutmoses. Maybe Thutmose the Third. Star can correct me because I know Star knows the name of. I know Star knows it. I don't know why. Actually, not that I know of, Pod. I don't believe there is a like a link or like a hole for a leash to go in. These might have been decorative leashes or decorative collars, like not in, because I guess this is the thing. So collars, in some cases, collars are used to link the dog to a leash, and then some of them are just used as not decoration, but obviously only to hold like the name tag or something, and then they have like a harness or something. These, I believe, are like purely decorative. Whether or not dogs wore them, no idea. I think they're worn in enough that it looks like somebody wore them. But yeah, they were found. Oh yeah, Thutmose the Fourth and briefly under. Yeah, no one is actually able to like nail it down from the last research I've done. Because we know he's within that time period, but we're not exactly sure which pharaoh he was immediately ruling under, because there's nothing super specific in his tomb. He has an absolutely amazing tomb. If you go back to my first blog post, he was my first Mummy Monday that I did on my blog. I love this tomb. It's amazing. But yeah, these were found in his tomb. No indication why. The main theory is that he worked as like a right-hand man of some pharaoh and like possibly as a bodyguard. And so there's some theory that these could have been the pharaoh's dogs, that when Mehe Perry died, he was able to be buried with the collars of the dogs that he took care of for the king. That's kind of a theory. It's not very concrete, but that's a theory. This one also actually has a dog's name on it. And I'll talk about that later when we talk about all the different textual sources and the names of dogs. But this one's a very interesting one as well. I think it's on the other side. It might be right here. Side note, the Sumerians were likely the first person to create a dog collar. Super cool. I think they're probably, I mean, they're up there with probably being one of the first peoples to breed domestic dogs either. I'm not exactly sure if the Sumerians did it, but I know that, like, the Near East is closer to where the dog was, the domestic dog was immediately bred and formed. Oh, excuse me. I had Indian food tonight because my mom went out with her college friends, so I got Indian food for me and my dad. He seemed very happy. I hope he liked it. All right, so now we get to my actual corpus, and honestly, I'm just gonna show you my Excel spreadsheet with some images, but I'll show you my Excel spreadsheet in a second. So this is an art history paper. I was in an art history department. This was how I had to do it. I had to do it with an art history kind of lens looking at this. Would I have done this differently if it wasn't an art history program? Probably not. But it was definitely supposed to be focused on art history. So, let me show you my Excel spreadsheet. And you're not gonna be able to read this, and that's totally fine. But we will zoom in so that y'all can see how I did this. But impressive tooling, modern day dog fashion, studded collars, bejeweled collars, and so aren't designed to keep a dog. I know it is 100% a pure fashion statement, which makes me think that it was only made for like a royal dog. Like, that is a pure fashion statement, absolutely no function. It's made for a very fancy dog. So this is essentially my corpus, and it's just a very, very long list, an Excel spreadsheet of all of the objects that I found and all the information about it. So essentially I went over by category, description, dog count, so actually how many dogs are in this one image or object, provenance, meaning where the object came from. As you can see, many of them are Egypt, otherwise unknown. The date, which is the time period, so going from pre-dynastic, first dynasty, early dynastic, Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom, and so on. Then, if I knew a further dynasty it was in, I also labeled what dynasty it had been dated to. If it's in a museum, it got its museum name and its accession number. If it had a dog name associated with it, it would get a yes or no. And then if it had a dog name, it would have the details about the dog's name, the link and book sources with any sort of links and citations. And this is not filled. I don't think this is 100% like filled. Any sort of notes I had to write about it. And then we came to the iconography category, which I'll talk about. And then I had a list of if it had a picture or not. I don't remember what that is. And then at the very end here was something I did after my thesis was finished, is I labeled them in a catalog number. And essentially this is all ordered by time period. So no, Mark, no, I did not. I wrote this thesis during lockdown. I did all of this research. So essentially I started this thesis probably January or February 2019. And I wrote the intro essentially, which then got split apart to a million different pieces. But I started this summer of 2019, and I cut off this corpus around December of 2019, and I started writing it in January. I wrote it from January to May, essentially. But all of this information was collected before, and I hate to say it, this is just how I am. I didn't realize this until later. My entire senior thesis from college was also a giant Excel spreadsheet. This is just how I am. This is just how I like to categorize them. I love making corpuses. It's so interesting. So this is just how I am. I love how organized it is. So this is essentially, it goes in order from pre-dynastic, Old Kingdom, through all of the dynasties. I also have, I know, I love Excel. This version, I think, is labeling it by category, but I think it failed. This is just a list of all the dogs with names. Thank you. I love organization. So this is a list of just the dogs with names. We'll look at this later, but here, let's look at some charts and graphs, everyone. So, okay. So my current number is 491. So I have 491 scenes that I categorized and I looked at. This number has increased over the years, or not over the years, over the months since I've finished it. I have this little notebook. This is my thesis notebook with all this information. And literally, I just keep it right there. I keep it just right under my desk. Oh my god, it's so dusty. That's so embarrassing. I'm gonna sneeze. Literally on the cover of this is 2 new dog depictions. So there is literally just a post-it note saying, "New dog, tomb of Wati to the right of the entrance, sitting under the chair. New dog, tomb of Mehu, above the first doorway under the chair. First chamber over the doorway on the right under the chair. In the first chamber over the corridor under chair with monkey." I actually remember what these post-it notes are from. Do you remember when we did the tours? And we went into 3D models of ancient Egyptian tombs? I discovered these going in, doing those, when we went in those 3D models for that lecture. I discovered these when I was looking at them while doing research. I was like, oh shoot, I did not know that. And so these have not been added to the corpus. And there's probably a list. Yeah. All of these is all of this, this page, and this page are all things to add later. because I at one point I was just like, I can't keep adding it and changing all the numbers. Pretty much after I started writing, I did not add anything. Even though I was finding stuff still consistently, I didn't have time to add anything and change all the numbers, essentially. Yes, there are a lot of Old Kingdom in comparison to everything else. In general, Mark, an answer to your question as to why there are so few, second intermediate, third intermediate, Ptolemaic, Nubian, and Roman, essentially that could be a lack of preservation. When it comes to the intermediate periods, it probably is. We have a lack of preservation, or we have a lack of royal or higher class art. And most of the stuff from the Old Kingdom we're talking the princes or the royal court of the pharaohs of the pyramids and the pharaohs of lots of other places. So when we have that lack of higher class art, dogs might not have been seen as a necessity. Also, when looking at like the Ptolemaic and Roman, I was very cautious to accept anything in those sections, especially the Roman. As you might know, one of the reasons why modern people think that the ancient Egyptians loved cats is because of the mass burials of cat remains. And these were done ritually. These were done as sacrifices, essentially, to the goddess Bastet and to a lot of other gods and goddesses. But cats were not the only animals that were sacrificed in this way. Dogs were as well, during this Ptolemaic period. I could have added those. To this corpus. I would have been in the thousands. The amount of burials is astounding. And for the most part, those dog burials only actually might have one bone. It actually is not a full dog. It's that they have modeled the bandages to look like a dog on the outside. And so I did not want to add those because they were ritual and they did not represent a real dog most of the time. Yeah, mainly in going to the late period to the Ptolemaic period, but the rapid uptick of those dogs was insane in the late period and the Ptolemaic period. And so that's why I feel like, and y'all have heard this rant before, anything that only occurred in the Ptolemaic or Roman period, you cannot say that is something that, it's probably a big bone, like the femur or like a leg bone. It'd be a really long, because the dog mummies would be about maybe this big, and so they would just get one bone that's about as big as they needed it to be, and then they would wrap it, and then they would fake it that it looks like a mummy. It's probably a big leg bone, a big arm bone of a dog. Or even maybe not of a dog, of a jackal as well. They were also killing jackals for that same reason. It's a very good question. I don't know. I would love to do a little research into what made that change. because I'm not exactly sure when it comes to the Ptolemaic and Roman era if those were Egyptians, if those were purely Egyptians, if those were purely Greeks, or if those were these ethno mixings of Egyptian and Greek people. You could not pay me to write a paper, and guess what? They wouldn't pay me anyway if I wrote a paper. I could not give a crap about publishing papers. I don't know why. And I'm glad, because I don't get paid to do it. Yeah, saying Ptolemaic and Roman period represents all of Egypt is like saying the advent of the internet defines the entire 20th century. Exactly. The example that I give is somebody in our, I think it was Naveen maybe, somebody in our Discord sent us a link saying, is this true? And it was like the ancient Egyptians invented bowling because they found one essentially a bowling track where it was just a long preserved thing with some items at the end. It looked like kind of the game bowling. But then I looked at it and it came from the Ptolemaic period almost to the Roman period. And I was like, you cannot say that those are the ancient Egyptians. Like, not to say that they weren't Egyptian, they were. But you cannot say that the ancient Egyptians invented bowling during an era where there was so much cultural mixing, because you cannot say distinctively that the ancient Egyptian people who were living there invented that versus the Greek people or the Near Eastern people or the Cretan people or like any other people who came to Egypt during that time, the Persian people. Like, you cannot for sure say that an ancient Egyptian person invented it. It's my newest rant, honestly. It's very funny how that just happened. Ugh, that is also true. Sometimes you have to pay people to publish, and that I'm not for. God dang it, I need to get rid of this cup. I keep forgetting. This cup is so old. So yeah, so my current number is 491. You can see here which ones date to what period. If it's easier for you to look at, you can look at this chart. Old Kingdom is vastly the most popular, followed by the Middle Kingdom, then by the New Kingdom. I hate to say it, that just makes sense. Thank you. I need to stand up straighter. Oh, my back cracked. I hate to say it, that just makes sense, just because these are the periods that there was more it was more prosperous during those times. Then we have the pre-dynastic period. Interestingly, a lot of these pieces on mine are pottery with dogs on it, and I have very little images of those pottery. I just happened to find a list somewhere where someone wrote a list of here are all the dogs depicted on this type of pottery, but I have no images of those pots, which is so infuriating. First intermediate period, there's a lot of stuff, and then everything else is kind of minuscule. A lot of stuff also doesn't have a date to it. I think it's interesting. We found something resembling bowling from that long ago, regardless of who invented. Yes, it's so interesting. It's definitely very interesting, very weird. I just hate that they say that it's ancient Egyptian. So then, we'll go down here just for a second. Out of 491, 81 objects have a name associated to it, with a possible 2. Maybe I actually haven't updated this to see if those 2 are yeses or nos. I think I can pretty much distinctly say if they were. And most of the things we're looking at are figural scenes, and then there are a lot of artifacts and then burials at the end. Now these are the different categories that I made. So here are the categories. So I don't know how to describe how I did this because it got so detailed. But essentially I created 4 groups: domestic scenes, nature scenes, burials, and figurines and vessels. And first, all of the objects got shysted into one of these groups. Some of them can be double dipping. I did not attribute any of those double dipping, but some of them can fit into multiple categories. I just went with what I thought the main category was. And so then within domestic scenes, nature scenes, burials, figurines, and vessels, I then created 21 types, which you can see here, and I'll show you what those types are. I'm not going to go over all of them. I'm going to go over the big ones, essentially, and show you some images from those. Sorry, let me see where I am. All right, so let's go back to the PowerPoint. Sorry, you're seeing. No! Escape. Sorry. This thing is so annoying sometimes. Ah! What the heck is it doing? Okay, here we go. Burial scene, like a dog being buried? No, burials is a actual physical burial. So I did include those because there were so honestly few of them in comparison to the numbers. But if I found, we'll talk about it in a second, but essentially it's, actually here, also talk about here. So group 1, domestic scenes, was 48.8% of this, and this included family scenes, offering scenes, tribute scenes, feeding scenes, playing scenes, craftsman scenes, and ritual scenes. Then group 2 is nature scenes, which was 34.4% of my corpus. These included hunting scenes, animal scenes, battle scenes, boat scenes, and agricultural scenes. Group number 3 was figure ends, statuettes, vessels, toys, and unknown, which was 9.9%. And group 4 was burials, which was 6.7%. And those included actual physical animal remains that were buried, burial remains, sorry, I shouldn't have used that word. Tomb remains is what I should have said. Remains of an actual tomb for an ancient Egyptian dog, and then coffin remains, which are remains of an actual coffin made for an ancient Egyptian dog. And so these are all the scenes. I now realize I should have shown you some of the battle scenes, but I can show you them later. I didn't talk about all of these because I was getting a little antsy. But let us start off with the most important ones, which have some great images. Within the domestic scenes, the first one is called an offering scene. These are, domestic scenes, we have 240 scenes in general. Just alone, there are 126 offering scenes. And the way I've defined an offering scene is essentially a dog in the presence of a human who we can presume is his owner in front of an offering table. So these are various different types of offering stela, a stela essentially being a large rock that is carved. And all of these men are sitting in front of offering scenes. This one doesn't have a very distinct offering table, but you can see the goose and like the little bread loaf and the jar. This one's got piled high full of stuff and piled high full of more stuff. And as you can see, all of these little dogs are just sitting very politely underneath their chairs. And that is the way that we mostly see them. We mostly see these dogs very politely sitting, standing, or crouching, or laying down underneath these chairs. And they're so cute. They're so cute and tiny. And these are some of my favorites. I think they're very cute. I think they teach us a little bit about the person itself. Most of these offering stela are made for the person who is sitting by the person who is standing, if the stela has another person. So most likely, if we were to read this text, actually, have I read this one? I actually might have read this one. This one is located at the Met or the MFA. I can't remember. But most of these texts say, well, actually, I can read this one. An offering that the king gives Osiris. An offering that the king gave, and Osiris. This one's giving him a lot of beer. A lot of oil, I think. But essentially, an offering stela is almost the equivalent of a tombstone, with the exception that it does not mean that that stela is going to mark where you are buried. But essentially it was made by a family member or a friend after you had passed on as a place where people could bring offerings to give to you in the afterlife. And it also is like, it's not even just a place where you can give offerings. This is literally an offering to your deceased relative. So often, a lot of these texts are very kind to the person who's making it, saying, "I am your only son. I have given you this tablet. I am blessing this like completely like just going on and on about how great they are for giving them this tablet and kind of doing stuff like that. And so the likelihood that these are real dogs is a possibility, but there have been discussions about there's an amazing article, and if somebody could find it, y'all should all read it. It's very interesting. I have it somewhere and I can share it. I think it's called What's Under the Chair, and it's an entire article looking at all of the different things and animals that have been found underneath chairs in ancient Egyptian art, and just talking about what they are doing, what they're doing there, why they're there. Because, I mean, some things are like, you see dogs, you see cats, you see monkeys, you see servants, you see dwarves, you see chess, you see mirrors, you see all of these things, and like this paper goes into like all of the theories possibly about like what they could mean. So the second most popular group is I realize I was supposed to put another picture on here, are family scenes. And these essentially look very, very similar. I also now realize this is not a family scene. This is an offering scene. Excuse me. I'll find other pictures. Don't worry. But this one, essentially a family scene is where a dog is pictured typically underneath a chair of their owner, but not in front of an offering table. So I also could have called this banquet scenes, because normally these appear more in the New Kingdom and they're all kind of eating at a banquet together. But I just call them family scenes because there are some other ones that aren't at banquets. This one has 83 examples. And again, the dogs are also seen underneath the chairs with servants, dwarves, monkeys, other animals. And then there also are other scenes that I forgot to put up an image where the dog is walking underneath a palanquin, and a palanquin is a carrying chair, essentially, where their owner is being carried in this high chair with two poles that are being held up by servants, and the dog is walking underneath it. And essentially, that's what the rich and famous, how they would get around, is supposedly people would just be carrying them in chairs. Yeah, there are very much, these are New Kingdom, you can tell. Old Kingdom, they do have a good amount of like, the women will be touching the man or something. But it's very sweet. You can see her fingers over here. And I think this one, I think she's also holding him. I can't tell where her arm comes in. It's a little weird. This is one of my favorite dogs because he's so weird looking. He's a little skinnier than the other ones I've seen. And then this one has a name. I can't remember which name this one is, but we'll have to look it up later. Okay, sorry. Sorry. Go back. We're gonna look at these images for a second. So, interestingly, 83% of the scenes in the domestic group are the only dog pictured in the entire tomb or the entire stela. So in these cases, both of these are from tombs. 83% of these images are the only dog. There's only one dog portrayed in the entire tomb. Obviously, that other 27% are coming from tombs that have multiple depictions of the dog. Also, with a variety of scene types. You might have some in a hunting scene, you might have some in a domestic scene, you might have some in a tribute scene. And the interesting thing about this is we're not 100% sure if those dogs are actual dogs that the human wanted to. It's impossible to determine if this man, when he was dying and he was dictating how he wanted his tomb to be built, if he said, please don't forget about Rex, my dog, I want Rex to be underneath my wife in this chair. We don't know if that is what we're talking about, or if we are saying, oh, well, the standard is to put a dog under the chair to kind of fill that space, or to portray that man was a very brave man and he had kind of the attributes or the characteristics of a dog. He was a loyal person, so we're going to put a dog underneath his chair. Like, we don't know. And so when we have multiple dogs in multiple places in one tomb, it's very hard to determine if that's the same dog in multiple scenes or if that is just being used as kind of a symbol of something else. We have in the tombs of Mereruka, Keti, Pepi Ankh, and Khnumhotep III, all of these tombs in Beni Hassan have multiple dog breed types throughout the tomb. And that's the other thing, is like, if we have some instances where I was able to determine that in two separate images these are the same dog, and the only one that I was 100% certain was on either side of this very long offering scene where the husband was on one side and the wife was on the other. There was a dog underneath each of their chair, and each of those dogs had the exact same name spelled. And at that point, I looked at those two dogs and I said, that is the same dog. That is the only one that I was 100% certain and able to say that that is portraying the same dog in two different scenes, but it is the exact same dog because it's labeled and has a name. But in the case when there are multiple breeds, how do we know that they're not choosing the style breed that is more typical of a hunting than a family scene? We don't know. As Mike Parker Pearson said, the dead don't bury themselves. Honestly, though, the ancient Egyptians kind of did. They started building their tomb. If they were rich enough, they could start building their tomb from when they were like a teenager. Yeah, nobody has really talked about the dog as a status symbol. And that was something that I would have loved to kind of delve into, but this is kind of like the first thing that like needed the basis for. I don't think I had enough of an argument to kind of go back and forth if the dog was used that way. Ugh, I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm all congested for some reason. So one of the other scenes we have are called tribute scenes. These are essentially where the dogs are being offered as tribute to either a pharaoh or to somebody else. They are found in like these long processional marches with other animals like ibexes, hyenas, giraffes, cattle, horses, even one image of a Syrian bear, and even an elephant, which are pretty rare in ancient Egypt depictions. So here you can see we got the poor little ibex. I think that might be a bunny. I have absolutely no idea. But this dog is running alongside to him, this poor little dog. This is a really interesting one. It's coming from a tomb specifically of a voyage to the Red Sea. I'm pretty sure it's this dog. So this dog sitting down there. And then this image is very interesting because we have these three dogs and then this possibly puppy. We're not 100% sure. And then these who have also been attributed to dogs, but from my research are very distinctly hyenas instead of dogs. They're mostly like the low sloped back, the shorter legs, and the very bushy tail. These are most likely hyenas. These are most likely dogs. Why there is this small dog with not pointed ears and not a curled tail is very interesting to say. And I mean, it's a high possibility that it could have been a puppy. Okay. So then we have some feeding scenes. And this is a very unique category. I think these are literally all of the images that are in the feeding scene category. But it has actually caught quite a bit of scholarship, mainly pertaining to this little amulet and then these two images. That is true. That is true. Yeah, we don't see a lot of images of that, but that very much could be that an indication that the dog's ears are not naturally pointy, but were cut to perked. Perked? Is that what the name is? Yeah, so these are very interesting. So I love this little dog, this little mama. Her name is Det, or Jet, kind of. And she's feeding her little puppies. They're super cute. And she also has this, which very funnily looks like a bell, but it's actually just like the ends, like the terminals of her coiled collar. But this scene in particular has gotten quite a lot of scholarship because people have been calling it a pig for a really, really long time. And is most likely because of a error in the original line drawing where they drew the feet as hooves. So if you ever kind of find the scene, you actually have to look very closely because there are differences based off of who did the line drawing originally. But it's mostly been determined that this is actually a puppy, and they are actually weaning the puppy off of its mother's milk. And strangely, the way that it has been the way it has been understood is that the man there is holding milk in his mouth, and he is letting the dog lap it up out of his mouth. There was a whole paper I had to read about this. It was very weird, and I didn't understand a lot of it, but there are theories that that's what was happening based off of like modern practices in certain areas of the world on weaning young animals off of their mother. And so then this man took from this, and he was like, I think that's what this little amulet was, and what this little amulet was as well, is that they're literally not kissing the dog. They could be. Yeah, he didn't talk about it as pre-chewed food, but I think that's a high possibility. Like, I don't understand really why you'd have to eat it out of your mouth, but I think that's a high possibility as well. He was mostly focused on the lapping of the milk, essentially trying to teach a dog to not suckle anymore, but to drink with its tongue, maybe? I'm not exactly sure. So it was a deep article that I did not think I would ever have to read. But yeah, his whole theory was based off of this image. That's also what these two amulets were also depicting as well. All right. So now we go on to nature scenes. So this is group 2. I defined these scenes as domestic dogs interacting with other animals or humans in a hunting, agricultural, or outdoor context. Oh, very interesting, Jesse James. That makes a lot of sense, and that could very well be what is going on, for sure. I didn't even think about that. Sorry, I'm not yawning in my own lecture. I was up really early this morning. Okay, so in nature scenes, there are 169 examples, which makes up 34.4% of my corpus. The largest type of this is a hunting scene, which is pretty obvious as to why. Dogs were used for hunting, and that's just how they were. So dogs were very typical companions for hunting, and honestly did a lot of the heavy lifting themselves. If you can see, so some of these, so in this case, this particular image would probably be like a more domestic scene of a dog, but this is 100% a hunting scene, a nature scene. And then if you look even closer, you can see two dogs here. Is that a dog? No, I think those are cows. Here, and even here are dogs attacking these animals and biting these animals and essentially taking them down for their owner. Here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 dogs ripping at, honestly, I couldn't even tell you what animal that is. I don't know where the animal's head is, but they are all kind of ripping out of this animal. This is also a very interesting scene with this hunter. I found multiple versions of this scene from multiple different tombs, where there is this kind of a man is holding the dog by the collar or by the neck and pointing forward. I found, oh God, I wish I wrote down the number. I think I found maybe 9. Oh, sorry guys. Oh yes, very much so. Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of images of them going for the heels of the animal. Yeah, so I would say it's mostly these like crazy leaping motions. These like crazy leaping motions where they're kind of leaping over, like it's a lot of jumping, and that is mostly just to fill the space because obviously nothing can overlap. But then there's definitely heel nicking. this ripping motion, and then yeah, this is very much, it could be a training scene 100%. But it's very interesting because something I didn't have a lot of time to talk about in my thesis is that ancient Egyptians did use scenes over. If an artist is painting multiple tombs at the same time, he would completely reuse the exact same scene in a different context. I have some examples of this when it comes to dogs. Mostly this one battle scene, which I think I showed y'all because we went in that lecture where we went through all the different tombs. I think we went into one of the tombs that had the battle scene. But it's a direct copy. It's two tombs in Beni Hassan have the exact same battle scene and wrestling scene in the tomb. And so this leaves me to believe, though, if they're just reusing scenes, that these are probably not real dogs. And that these images of dogs are more than likely just representing over-order chaos, representing what a general hunting scene would look like. Very interestingly, it has been actually theorized that hunting itself was actually only about 2%, less than 2% of how food was procured in ancient Egypt. It seems more likely that hunting was used as a game and as like a kind of an elite thing to do. It was not the way that most food was apparently procured in ancient Egypt, most meat as it was. I am assuming that the majority of it was like domesticating animals or capturing animals and kind of raising them to be eaten. These are other, I had to make it, unfortunately, a more general thing that I called animal scenes, and typically I just called it animal scenes when it was dogs with other animals, but they aren't being hunted and they don't have any humans. So most of these refer to the pre-dynastic palettes, pre-dynastic combs, like this one with all of these different lines of animals and these little cute doggos at the bottom. This is also a New Kingdom, oh my god, I can't stop yawning, I'm so sorry. What is the word for it? New Kingdom ostraca, with these funny drawings of dogs talking, it seems like. Yeah, very, very true, Jesse. But I will note, I think that statistic is not about dog hunting specifically. It's just about hunting in general. So essentially hunting with bows and arrows, hunting with anything else. It is pretty much believed that hunting in general was probably more used as kind of an elite game. It was not used for actually going out and procuring food. Because essentially anybody who wasn't using it for elite game, which would be a poorer person, they probably wouldn't go hunting at all. They probably were not eating any, if any, meat at all. And so hunting itself was not even that big of a deal for the mass populace of Egypt. Yeah, so these are animal scenes, much more general, not a lot of them. Many of them are these early dynastic ceremonial palettes, which pretty much just have a couple dogs in them, and then with other animals, and that's kind of it. So one of my favorite ones is agricultural scenes, and it shows kind of dogs hanging out with their owners or with other people, just doing kind of agricultural stuff. So like in this case, this guy and his wife are overlooking a huge agricultural scene, and his dog, this one's name is Inky, and a monkey are overlooking all of these different agricultural scenes. This is one of my personal favorites. It's from this most beautiful tomb, and it's a man using a shadoof over a canal. A shadoof essentially is this long counterweighted pole with a basket that would carry water, and it would help you go down the bank of the Nile to pick up water and then bring it out. And this tiny little dog is just sitting and enjoying. And then these ones are these two little dogs in procession with some guys carrying some, I think, wine jugs and stuff. So then let's move on to figurines, vessels, and unknown. These are some very, very, very sweet figurines of dogs suckling some babies. They're ridiculously cute, and I want one for my home, or I want to make one because I love them. So most of these are just the physical artifacts that didn't fit exactly into one of the other two categories. Most of the time we don't have a lot of provenance for these, and there are so many vessels that we have from the pre-dynastic period that have a dog depicted on it in like the very crudely kind of drawn decoration. So it is kind of just like, okay, typical. But I love these guys. And then there's also these ones. This one is my favorite. I've named him Spot. Spot is my absolute favorite. Like, I hate to say it, he's my favorite piece. He's almost my favorite piece in my entire corpus because I just love him. Yeah, they're very cute. They're very, very cute. They were super common in the Middle Kingdom. These tiny little blue faience dogs. Most often they were spotted with little black spots. And they're just gosh dang cute. So it is actually what we call faience, and faience essentially is pottery, but it has an outer glaze made out of, is it made out of melted glass? I'm very bad. I don't remember how you make faience. That's the unfortunate thing about this mark, is that a lot of these have no provenance at all. Probably in tombs is what we can assume. But a lot of these, with these kind of small finds that they were found, and many of them are in museums. Like, these are not objects that, it's like a weird way of spelling fiance. Faience. No, these are actually found in the Middle Kingdom. But originally probably found in the 1920s or around that time. But I think my spot is at the Met, I think. A couple of these are this one's at the Met, I think. Actually, how do I remember this? I don't know why. I remember this little guy. This little guy was found in one of the Met's 1920s. Yeah, no, you're totally right. Yeah. Before archaeological methods were better. Yeah, so he was found on one of the Met's excavations, and he's in one of the original Met publications. If you look at they have this huge picture, black and white picture of all of the small find objects, and this little dog is just sitting right there. And I think it's this one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's this one. But I think it is presumed that they were found in tombs. But I wish I could have done a little bit more research about these because I love these so much. And I would love to know like why they were made. Like, they couldn't have just been made for being cute. I don't know why, but that just can't be the answer. I want to know. I just want to know why they were so popular. Oh, sorry guys. Ah! I thought I got images of toys. Okay, that's okay. Oh. Yeah, that's it. He's so cute. I love him. Yeah, so if you look up... Oh, they don't have the center of the article. They had an article. I think he was found in the pyramid complex of Senwazeret. Is that where they say he was? List pyramid, yeah. East of the boat pit. That's all they can tell us. So yeah, this one wasn't found in a tomb. This was just found, which is unfortunate. Oh wait, no. Sorry. Okay, so the next image will have some mummified remains. I forgot to put a trigger warning, but it's just this next slide. And I will briefly talk about them and then switch off. But there is skeletal and mummified remains. While faience is made of common materials, quartz, alkaline salts, lime, and mineral-based colorants, it maintained important status among precious stones and metals. Yeah, I always thought it was a glass product, which kind of is where the quartz, alkaline salts, but I forgot lime. Lime is the big one. Essentially, ancient Egyptians loved lapis lazuli, which I have here on this bracelet and on a ring that I just bought recently. Lapis lazuli is this gorgeous, gorgeous deep blue color. But as you can see from these beads, ranges in color. Lapis lazuli only appears in Afghanistan, essentially. And the ancient Egyptians obviously made it there because they have a good amount of lapis lazuli jewelry, and the entirety of King Tut's mask is lapis lazuli. But they loved it so much that they tried to make their own cheaper version. And that's essentially what faience is. Although faience tends to typically have this lighter blue color. Oh wait. Sorry. I got that wrong. They love lapis lazuli, but that's not what I was talking about. I'm talking about turquoise. I think faience was made to replicate turquoise, which is a lighter blue color. Ooh, you have a large chunk of lapis lazuli. Yes, send it in the Discord, please. I want to see it. I'm very tempted. There's a really cool crystal shop in my town, and they had a lapis lazuli little obelisk, and I really want it, and I just have to convince myself to go buy it. I might go buy it tomorrow. But yes, join the Discord and send me a picture, because I love looking at stones. Yeah, so right here on my desk, I have this bracelet made of lapis lazuli. Unfortunately, it's like right the size of my wrist, so my poor little hairs keep getting caught in it, so I can't really wear it as much. But I then also bought a tiny piece of carnelian. Oh yeah, Star, I think that's definitely true. Yeah, that they were trying to represent both. The one thing I was just like, I was like, lapis lazuli is so much darker. They couldn't really, but I forgot about turquoise, is that it's like the lovely. But yeah, faience also comes in a range of colors and stuff. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited, Jesse James. I would love to see it. I really think I might go buy that. I'm absolutely like such a depressive buyer. I just go and buy all this shit. I gotta see how expensive it is, but I really want it. All right, so next slide is buried remains. If you don't want to look at it, just turn away, and I will tell y'all when we switch off of that slide. Here we go. So, oh yeah, sorry. I should have waited until Mark did the trigger warning in the chat. So the final group is burials. And I only had 33 examples of burials, which is 6.7% of my corpus. These are not just animal remains, but also objects that are associated with animal burials. 21 of my examples in this category are actual physical animal remains. But it is also super hard to determine because of the amount of votive ritual burials of dogs. So I essentially only included burials of dogs that occurred within human tombs or within... Hello, Kayla. You came at the right time. Would you like to see a mummified dog? I'm so sorry. This is not the place. I hope you enjoy. I hope you don't leave. Awesome. I'm glad you find it fascinating. These are I'm struggling to remember which ones these are. But essentially you could post it in the general chat, or you could post it in, there's also like a show me Egypt, which is also a good one that you could post it in. Yes, he was a very good boy. I do love this dog. I love him a lot. I believe this one is the one found in the entrance of the tomb of Herr Neith. I have to remember. I just pulled these images. I can't remember where these two specific ones are from. But this one was found in KV50 in the Valley of the Kings, in the tomb, in a empty tomb with essentially him and a mummified baboon. That is a great question, Mark. That is because that is how he is. He was found standing up with his legs, and so because of that, his legs are still in that position. He literally, like, that was how he was mummified, and he was found standing in the tomb. So essentially, he was mummified and was most likely wrapped, but the tomb had been looted, and so all the wrappings were removed. So he was found next to another then unwrapped baboon. Was it a baboon or was it a monkey? I can't remember. I can't remember what type of monkey it was. What type of primate it was, excuse me. But yes, so this dog was found in a tomb in the Valley of the Kings. It was not a tomb with any human burials. It essentially was a cache that they believe, possibly, I believe that there's a possibility they think it might be Thutmose IV, which has led some people to believe that this is actually the dog that the collars were for, the ones that they found in Mehi-Peri's tomb. We can't say that. We can't say for certain, but who knows? Maybe. But presumably, if he is buried in the Valley of the Kings, he and that monkey were very important to somebody. So. Ugh, my throat hurts so much. So then we also have one buried in the entrance of the tomb of Herr Neith, from the early dynastic period. And then we also have one buried in the tomb of Susenes I, in Tanis, next to his coffin. This one, if you can see correctly, this is a human burial, and there is a dog buried next to him. Again, there is the possibility that that dog was more of a sacrifice or a representation of that person being loyal, but there is the possibility that that was his pet. We don't know, or that was his personal animal. All right, skipping off of this. So then we have dog coffins, which, oh my gosh, if I could write a paper on all of these, I 100% would. Yeah, Tanis. Tanis is cool. Susenes I is really freaking cool. Or any of the Susenes, if you haven't read about Susenes, and they're silver coffins, they're way cooler than King Tut. I hate to say it. Way cooler. Didn't get a lot of cred when they were discovered. So I have 4 wooden coffins that we know pretty well that they were made for dogs. And I'll talk about these when I actually translate some of the text for you. But this is an image. I love this image. This is the image of the actual coffin, and this is how they found it. And I just love this image of it just sitting at the bottom of a pit. I don't know why. It's just so cute to me. And then this is the remains of another coffin, and that essentially the only parts that are remaining are the text. What about the dog being seen as a protection or tribute to Anubis? 100%. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's difficult because even though, like, we get so conflated with the difference between a dog and a jackal, it seems like dogs were also used as a sacrifice to Anubis. But yeah, that's 100% a possibility as well. And it's things that we will never know, which annoys me to no end. So I didn't pull up any images of this, but we also have some very interesting burial markers from the early dynastic period that have a name written on it with the determinative of a dog, which would indicate that that name is the name of a dog and not a human. And these little burial markers, they kind of look like tiny tombstones, and there's a ton others with female and male determinatives at the end of it, but then there's just like a slew of them that are dogs, and we'll talk about those when I look at the names as well. So, okay, so now we're going to talk about texts mentioning dogs, and we're actually just going to jump over to my actual thesis to look at the images, or to look at the text of it. But first, the ancient Egyptians had a few different words for dogs. One of them was chesem, and another one was iu, or sometimes iu, and the iu specifically has been thought to be a reflection of a dog's howl. because if you didn't know, the ancient Egyptian word for cat is miu, and that literally is obviously meow. And there are lots of ancient Egyptian words for certain things that are literally just, it's called onomatopoeic, I think, which essentially means that like the name of that thing is the sound that that thing makes, I think. And so EU has been thought to be like a howl, essentially. Onomatopoeia. Okay, there we go. I knew I was close. I just couldn't get it totally. And in later periods, we also see a word behen being used for the word for dog. We have no recorded word for puppy, but in the Tale of the Doomed Prince, which we'll talk about in a second, they use a word called ket, which means trembler or the springer, and that might imply like a younger dog, but it's not explicitly meant to be a puppy. I learned how to spell that in elementary school. I did not, for sure. So, first, before we talk about this image, we're going to talk about the names. And I wish I had a whole slew of the images of these names, but I don't. So we'll have to find the images later. So essentially we have here, you can see on here is all of the dog names. So these have all been numbered based on one dude named Yosef Janssen, because believe it or not, there were two Janssens, both named J. Janssen, in my paper that I had to cite, Yak and Yosef. So Josef Janssen published a list of dog names, and he numbered all of them, and multiple other authors then added on to this list and attempted to use his numbering system, and then they got a lot of things wrong, including even like accepting a name as a name, and I determined that it was not actually meant to be a name. It was actually meant to be describing something else. So I had to remove it from the list. But this is the complete list. Actually, wait a second. Let's do this list instead. Where's the list? Okay. Can I do 175? Yeah, you guys don't need to see the sources. I just want to make sure you guys can read everything. So, so this is the updated list of examples of named dogs, and you can see here I have the name, the translation, the date, the location, and then the location it was found, and then the museum, if it is in a museum. And some of these are quite simple and have good translations. Some of them don't have translations, and that is not because I did not try. I did not want to try. For the most part, I am not as skilled with ancient Egyptian, Middle Egyptian, or even any Egyptian to name these. But some of them can be very simple. This dog's name is Neb. That means Lord or Master, which is a pretty great name for a dog. Then we have Irihem, could mean the comrade of the wife. Ait, or no, sorry, Ait. This is Irihem. I'm sorry, I'm getting all my letters mixed up. This is Ah. This is just a apostrophe for no good reason. So Ait where, meaning the great Pacan, and we have absolutely no idea what Pacan is. It was just translated from German, the Grober Pacan, and I have no idea what Pacan means. And my professor got really angry at me for translating something into a word that doesn't exist, and I said, that's not my job. I did not translate any of these. These are just how you translated them in German. Then we have Abu, and anything that has an asterisk means that they appear more than once on the list. So even though these are the it's so confusing. This is the list of all of the examples of names. This is not the list of names because many of these names are duplicates. So there are 80. Are there 81? No, there are 96 names. 96 instances of a dog being named is like how I'm trying to say this nicely. But it's very hard. So this is one that's interesting. So you can see these two names are both coming from two tombs, one in Saqqara and one in Giza, but it's the exact same name, which is crazy. This one could mean unconscious, dizzy, or it also could mean makeup. Where's a good one? I love the sycamore. I don't know why. That one I like. Fat or Oli. So, do y'all remember which this one was? This is the pregnant one that was nestling her puppies. Or who was suckling her puppies. Her name is literally the Fat. let me go look at the image. Where'd she go? She's this one. This is her. She is named the Fat. Or Oily. Some people are so mean. So that's the problem, is that there's not enough overlap to really say which ones are the most popular. It's not distinctly, the way that this list was originally done was in chronological order. So you can see these are all the names that have date to the early dynastic. These are all the names that date to the Old Kingdom. There's lots of Old Kingdom names. But then eventually when you get to the bottom here, eventually you get more Old Kingdom names, but they're all different. There's only a handful that are repeats, so unfortunately you can't really tell which ones are popular. For this period, yeah, wow, there's 2 of this one. I think there's 3 of Abu, so that seems to be a pretty popular one, but unfortunately most of the only repeater ones are from the Old Kingdom, so you can't really tell from other periods. Yeah, see, there's another Abu. This one is Abutiu, which some have related that it might be related to Abu itself. Let's see. This is a very interesting case, and I can show you this. So you can see here, all of these 1, 2, 3, these 5 names all come from one piece. And they all come from one, it's called the Stela of Antef II. And there are, I think there's actually 7 dogs on the stela, but only 5 are named. And these have had various translations, because people, especially this one and this one, people believe that they actually are coming from a different language, a non-ancient Egyptian origin. I think it's Berber or Taurog, which I don't know a lot about those languages, but I believe there are other African languages, ancient African languages. This one is Blackie, which is a common name, although we use different words for it. But this is one of the ones that is contemplated, Tekru, meaning cauldron or something. Tepnefer. Tepnefer is actually a popular name. That's one of the ones I know is a popular name. It just means good or beautiful head. Tepnefer. Tep is head. Nefer means good, beautiful. Tepnefer is pretty much one. This is my favorite one. It means I do not like. I love this dog so much. Actually, this is a different one. This is the one I'm thinking of. This is not the useless one. There's one whose name is useless. This one is I do not like. It literally means E is I, Mary is love, and then N means it's negative. So it's I do not love. Which is so sad. I think Akhtoi was a mean person for saying that. It's very sad. We got one that could mean hairy or fury or furry. Son of the moon, one of my other favorite ones. lively, hippo-like, locks of hair. There also are ones that are just the 5th and the 6th, which is very interesting. There's another one I think that might be the 4th, but that's part of the same. That's part of the same. With this guy, there's another Abu. But see, this Abu is coming from the Middle Kingdom too. Yeah, it could be very much. A lot of these you go back and forth as to whether or not they are describing the dog's actual characteristics, or if it's just a label. We don't really know. Like, we don't really know. It's just the whole determinative of this entire lecture. The one with bad temper or lively. Oh my god, I highlighted that by accident. I didn't mean to do that. The 2 breasts. Don't know why. The woofer is an interesting one. He is a shepherd. I think there are 2 names that are similar to this. One is Good Shepherd and one is He is a Shepherd. Rascal. The brave one. Motzi is the word for brave. The North Wind. Ebony. So Hebony, this is literally the word for like black, and so people have called it Ebony. This is the name of the dog, of the dog in the dog collar. So it's Ta Net Niuet, those of the city or those of Thebes. So when you say the city, especially in the New Kingdom, it's always talking about Thebes. So it's pretty much saying the dog of Thebes, which is pretty cool. There's the Good Watchman or the Shepherd. There's another one. These are also coming from 2 different tombs in Thebes from the same time period. Anti will scourge. Anath is actually a non-Egyptian god, if I remember correctly. The one who stays with a Nubian. That was an interesting one. I think actually I translated this one because it doesn't have a citation, so I think I translated that one. Light tail or beard. Thou praise the woman. Beautiful or good root. Beat. Mother. Moot. I have joy. There's another ebony. Here's the 8th. Healthy. His master is healthy. There's 2 of these from 2 different tombs, which is cool. Breath of life belongs to Senbi. Senbi being his owner. So very specific name for that one. And we got one who is fashioned as an arrow. People think, they tend to think that that's describing the dog's shape, that he's very pointy. I can't say this guy's name. Satasmus lives. That is a name of I think of a minor god. Exaltation, prayer, and worship. Amun is valiant. Sable, antelope. Festival, Heb. Ba, provided being. Spherical or the bright one. The red one, so describing literally their color. Nice, beautiful head. Yeah, Tep Nefer is definitely the most popular, if I remember correctly. The linked or held in leash, and Heben. So these are actually, right down here, these are the last like 2 that I added, like that I contributed to it, and I said, okay, Hebony, this is a it's at the Michael C. Carlos Museum, this dog distinctly is Heben. And then you can see up here, I found out that that number 79 was a duplicate of number 68, so it got removed from the list. And so I distinctly kind of like removed it and marked it. Just thinking about the Nubian one because that was from the Middle Kingdom. Nubia wasn't conquered by the Egyptians into the New Kingdom. Yeah, that I believe is my own translation, so that definitely could be wrong. But I believe that is the word for Nubia. Nehesi. Yeah, Nehesi is the word for Nubia. But no, Nubia was definitely around though during they were trading with the Egyptians at that time. Alright, does anybody have any questions about the names? Because now we're just gonna go on, I'm gonna talk about some stories. These are the dogs. Sorry, I'm trying to find where I'm supposed to be. Alright, here we go. Yeah, possibly. Very, very much so. Alright, so there's only a few more things, and then, if I'm not absolutely exhausted by then, I'll let you guys pick some numbers and we can go look at some other images of the dogs. Oh, you posted a number of pictures of stone. I can't wait to look at them. I'll look at them after we finish this last part. So my last section of my thesis was looking at different mortuary texts that were dedicated to named dogs. No. I'm really trying hard to think, and I don't think I've ever seen a dog sitting on a lap. No, I don't think so. Sitting on laps was not totally a common artistic trope, minus babies and the Amarna period, which had a lot of people sitting on laps in the art. So I don't think so. Exactly. Good questions. Good questions. I did skip over. We did have one quote unquote playing scene where it looked like a little dog was playing with a boy. It's a really badly preserved amulet. I didn't have time to talk about it, but there is a possibility, like, it was a huge, like, thing, like, oh my god, this might be a huge, like, indicator of relationship, but it's so badly preserved that I didn't have time. You have to teach Kirby to sit directly under your chair, which Kirby wouldn't fit. None of like any modern dog would fit directly under your chair. But you have to sit him. I'll show you some images. He's got to sit so patiently under your chair. No can do. No can do. So this first one I'm going to show you is literally this image. So this block was found in Giza by George Reisner, who was very famous for excavating a lot of the Giza Pyramid Plateau. Yeah, very, very true, Mark, very true. So this block was discovered, and I will read out the translation that we have for it. But essentially, what Thorn, that's such a good name. He's claiming he's chilly. That's such a good name. Oh my gosh. So essentially, this piece was translated, and I'll read out the translation. But if you look very closely, you can kind of see this line right here. And this is not, because this is all a carving and carved in, and this is carved out. This is what is believed to be the leash. So this is a possible reconstruction of what this scene could have looked like, and that this little piece was just the writing here, and that this piece is somehow a leash. Like, that's one possibility. It's not 100% accurate because this is all we have. But let's look at what the text actually says. Oh, Hawthorne, that's an even better name. I love that name. Yeah, keep him warm and tell him he's a good boy. So, this was a block that was essentially from an original tomb that was then destroyed and then reused as fill for another tomb. So they found it in the 6th dynasty mastaba in Giza in G2188, but it probably came from another tomb chapel that eventually was demolished, and the blocks were reused as yeah, they do. All their leashes are very, very thin. Because you gotta imagine, it's probably the thinnest piece of leather like they could get without snapping. So the block is now located at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, and it contains 10 lines of a mastaba. I gotta explain what a mastaba is. Mark's getting on me on my vocabulary. I forgot I actually had in the very beginning, I had a whole explanation of what iconography is, and I forgot to say. A mastaba is a tomb type from the Old Kingdom. The word mastaba is the word bench in Arabic. And essentially they look like big, long rectangles with tiny, tiny openings where the tombs are. And they were essentially the top tier of burials during the Old Kingdom, with the exception of a pyramid. So all of the mastabas we have are all around the Giza pyramids. I don't no wait no lies. They're also around the other pyramids. They're also around the different Saqqara pyramids, and I know. No, Mark, thank you for keeping me educational. Yo, my voice is fading fast. Okay. So this piece was most likely from an original tomb that got demolished for some reason, we don't know why, and it was reused in the 6th dynasty. So there is estimation that this might have come from an earlier dynasty and was then reused. It contains 10 lines of inscription, and again, there's relief in the upper corner that could be part of the staff of the owner or the leash of a dog. So, this dog is named Abutiu, and we have absolutely no idea what it means, but his name is Abutiu, and I love this dog. So this is the translation of the text. The dog, using the specific word, using the Chessam word, the dog who used to carry out guard duty for His Majesty, whose name is Abutiu. His Majesty ordered that he be buried and that a sarcophagus be given to him for the 2 treasuries, along with a great quantity of idimi, linen, incense, and sefti oil. His Majesty also had a tomb constructed for him by the crew of tomb builders. His Majesty did this for him above all to ensure his state of imaku. So, essentially, this dog was so special, he got his own tomb. We don't know which pharaoh they're talking about, but we're presuming 5th dynasty. So it could have been one of the pyramid builders. It could have been one of their sons or ancestors. But it's saying that the Majesty built it. Whether or not that's really true is also a possibility. That if this was an individual dog's tomb, which I think is a little bit less likely, I think this might be a chapel within another tomb of their owner, that the chapel was specifically made for the dog, or like this specific wall portion was made for the dog. Just because we don't have any evidence of it, like, just makes me cautious. Although that would make it more reasonable if it was just for a dog and it was small. Who knows? We will never know, sadly. Oh, because someone decided to destroy this poor puppy's tomb. Dog leashes are more of reminding a dog his place. Most dogs are so well trained. Yeah, that is true. So this little dog got his own tomb, apparently, because he was specifically a guard dog for the king. So he did get offerings of linen and oil, and although this is not specifically an offering formula, this is a huge, this guy's been offered a tomb. That's absolutely enormous for a dog. So then, we're looking at a dog coffin, dating from the Middle Kingdom, and it was excavated by John Garstang at Beni Hassan, and is currently located at the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge. A dog was buried in this coffin, though originally the animal inside was identified as a jackal, which is okay and understandable when it was discovered. So there is a single band of text that was drawn on the sides and on the lid of the coffin in blue, although the lid unfortunately is mostly destroyed. The dog's name was Heb. Bye, Star. That's okay. We're pretty much almost done. I hope you have a very good night. See you tomorrow. I'm going to stream some Forewarned tomorrow, hopefully. I think so. I gotta see who's available to play. So interestingly, somebody noted that the dog's name, Heb, was often placed in a space too small to accommodate it, the hieroglyphs for the word Heb. So it may seem that the coffin might have been ready-made, and then later you added the name of the person that you were putting in, or it means that it could have been made for somebody else, and they had to like remove the name, and it was a shorter name than when they put the dog's name on it. So this is a part that I actually translated and transliterated from the actual text. So you can see here all of my handiwork. And of course, my thesis advisor was our ancient Egyptian language specialist. So I got ripped a new one multiple times for this. He also I wrote all of these out. Like I typed all these out on my own system, and he rewrote them all for me and just sent them to me. And I was like, well, thank you for telling me my work sucked, but also thank me for helping me. Because he put all of the shaded portions. You put the shaded portions there when it's not as preserved, but when you can presume what the symbol is. Oh no, he was a massive dick. I've talked about this several times. I hated him. He ruined. He I hate to say it. Did he ruin grad school for me and ever pursuing another grad program? Yes. Yeah, he did. He is the worst. Yeah, I don't think he knows how to talk to. This is the problem I found. This is a complete and utter side note. If you are going to go get a PhD and you are expected to teach, I believe that all people should be. I believe all professors should take a course on how to teach, because that doesn't happen in academia. Like, how could you be qualified to teach undergrads and graduates without getting a teaching certificate, which is required of elementary school teachers and high school teachers? Like, that doesn't seem right to me. He just didn't know how to communicate with any normal person, we'll say. I know. I didn't have a choice, unfortunately. I was forced upon him, essentially. I would have 100% chose the curator, who I was working under, even though she was also crazy and would have been a total crazy. Hi, Jonathan's Gamecast. Welcome. We're kind of wrapping up. We got a little bit longer for my talking about my thesis topic, ancient Egyptian dogs. But welcome. Yeah, if I had the choice of who my main advisor would have been, I probably would have picked the curator that I was working with, because I at least understood her quirks. But she also could be very hurtful. So used to be similar for some biologists. You got the ones that were neutral teachers, and you got the ones that weren't, or natural teachers. Sorry, yeah, natural. Yeah, exactly. And that's. These people go and they go to be professors because they want to go and do research, and they're not good. They're not good. Was he one of the read this and tell me the correct answer without any understanding types? Yes and no. He was like a show me your work, but that work's not good enough kind of guys. The problems I had with him are not what happened academically. It's kind of what happened, not exactly socially, but like communicatively. Essentially, when I started working on the actual paper portion of this was January and February of 2020. As soon as the pandemic hit, he became a ghost, and I could barely ever communicate with him, and he wouldn't answer anything, and he just made my anxiety like crazy, and I was so terrified of him that I didn't have the courage to stand up and say, what you're doing to me is absolutely awful, like ignoring my emails and answering emails of other people that isn't your one sole advisee. Like, I knew he was answering emails to my friend, who was also doing a thesis, but he was just on her board, but was just helping her with language, and I knew he would email her back and not email me back. And then he once yelled at me very badly when I actually tried to stand up to him a little bit and being like, I need some answers as to when you're going to send me stuff back. And then he said one of the rudest things in an email back to me, and I cut him. I essentially was like, I am so glad that I'm never going to have to see this man in person again, because we were all virtual. Um, and I'm very glad, because I never want to see that him ever again. And I know he would probably look up and he would probably see me and be like, oh my gosh, hi, how are you? And would totally try to be very casual with me, but I would not be happy. I don't know if I think I told some of you guys this. I had a dream once, like during the pandemic, when I was having absolute, like the early pandemic, I was having absolute crazy dreams. I had a dream that I was at my graduation with my best friend. I was at my grad school graduation, and we were in this big stadium, and I found out that my thesis won an award for like best thesis in like a certain category or something. And so I went up and I collected my award, and I was so happy. I was crying. I was just like absolutely like just in this moment of joy. And then the man who gave me the award looked at me and said, because your thesis won an award, it automatically makes your professor or your advisor be nominated for the best advisor award. And I was so mad. I was so mad in my dream. I was so mad in my dream. I was like ready to fight him. I was ready to be like, if he wins, I'm gonna be so upset. And he said, if he wins, you have to give him the prize. I was like, I don't want to do that. And so like, I literally was so upset in my dream that I woke up before it happened. Because I just like, I couldn't imagine the possibility of him winning best advisor. The other thing is that his entire impression, he would write, and he was very like bipolar, in that sometimes he'd be like, wow, you're doing great, you're on track, and then I wouldn't even do anything, but the next time he would check in, he's like, oh, you are behind, you're not gonna make it, you're not gonna be able to finish this semester. And like just very bipolar like that. And he was exactly like this with my later roommate when she went on and did her thesis the next year and he was her advisor. And I didn't have a choice as to him being my advisor, essentially. She had a choice, but her topic was literally exactly what he had done his doctoral thesis on, so she had to choose him. There was no other person to choose. She would have been totally shysted if she didn't choose him. But yeah, you can fight him. Yeah, and I very much wanted to email the head of my department to talk about it. And I essentially was talked out of that by my mom, because my mom didn't want me to burn any bridges. And yeah, I wanted to burn. I wanted them all to burn very badly. Yeah, I don't think I'm not saying he was bipolar. I'm saying he had this kind of switching of moods all the time. I have absolutely no idea. I don't think he was very much ADD. I know that. I can tell that just by looking at him. But no, I don't think he was bipolar. I think it truly was like I don't know. Maybe it was an antisocial. They're all antisocial. We'll say that. All right, let me chug some of this water, and then let's read this. Read this coffin. They are. I can't help it. They are. All three of the professors in my institute had absolutely no idea how to communicate with people half the time. Yeah. Yeah. So many academics, and it's just, it's hard, man. So, okay, so this little coffin, which I'll show a picture of in a second, this is what it said on different sides. Hetep di nesu, nesut, wiser, neb dedu, henti imint tiu heb. Meaning an offering that the king gave and Osiris, lord of Busiris, for most of the Westerners, to/for Heb. Heb being the dog's name. But as you can see, Heb does not have a dog determinative. So the only reason we actually think this is a dog is because it had a dog in it when it was found. Do you think there were two people with the same/similar names that he got confused to as he was talking to? No. There were only 3 people in my year, essentially. Oh, I know. No, it's just something that he did. It's honestly, it's a power tactic to make sure that you're on time and doing stuff. And I hate to say it, there were 3 people in my year. We were all very good friends. 2 of us, two of us finished our thesis that year, and one of them did not. She took another whole year to do it. And essentially, I thrived in the pandemic doing my thesis because I didn't have to go to work at the university anymore. I didn't have to go, like, I would be going to class and doing all of that stuff. I didn't have to do any of that. All I had to do was my thesis. All I had to do was sit in my room and do my thesis. So I thrived in that environment. I was able to get it done much faster than I ever expected to get it done. My other friend did not. She did not thrive. She, I think, felt faltered into her being stuck in her house, and she could not work in her house. And so she was not able to finish her thesis on time. She was not even closely able to finish her thesis on time. She, I think, took a whole another year to finish it. But no, it was a power tactic that was used to demoralize and to hopefully get you to push it into gear. But he would say that all the time. He'd be like, "Are you sure you're gonna be done?" And the funny thing is that the year before, or not the year before us, only one person from our program graduated. But the 2 years before us were two of my other friends. They each of them took either an extra semester or an extra year, and that is not what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to finish your master's in 2 years. And I think that was not a good. They were very much about, this is what the university and this is what our institute is all about, and anything that you do is a reflection of me, which is such utter bullshit. And he had said that to my face. He had said that anything that you do is a reflection of me, and this is embarrassing, is essentially what he would say to all of us, not just to me. Yeah, he was very much a narcissist. He believed he was hot shit. He is hot shit in certain circles. He obviously has a very high degree. He went to an Ivy League school that has an Egyptology program. It's one of the Ivy Leagues of Egyptology. And he would talk about constantly how his professors berated him, so he's gonna berate us. And I was like, damn, I'm never gonna be a professor, but if I was, hell no, I would not do this. I dropped out of my, oh no, mostly don't regret it. I was very close to dropping out at certain points, especially after the first year. And that wasn't even really for professors. That was more for, no, he went to UPenn. It's a very, Brown is not actually as high up in the Egyptology world. The big ones for Egyptology are UPenn, Chicago, what's the other one? Hopkins. Hi, Uncle Bill. How are you? Welcome to the lecture. People with that attitude of students drop out, and that's a real reflection. Yep. I regret not discovering new organisms. That's about it. Yep. Exactly. If I was in that, I'd be like, I regret not what I learned, not anything else about it. But alas, I finished. I'm never going back to school again. It's good, but it's not the one that I would immediately think of. Yale is honestly probably better than that. Executive Storm, hello, welcome. Mark, stop winking at me. You really want me to go through this shit again to go to grad school? I'm so traumatized by it. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. But welcome, Executive Storm. Welcome, Uncle Bill. We are finishing up a lecture. We've got a little bit more to do, but this is about my thesis, and my thesis was on ancient Egyptian dogs and depictions of ancient Egyptian dogs. So we're looking at a text that I translated from a dog coffin. So here it says, an offering that the king gave an Anubis. So on one side it says Osiris, and the other says it says Anubis, who is before the divine booth, who is atop his mountain, to or for Heb, the lovely little dog. I mean, probably, but I'm more scared of the professors than anything. And writing papers. I hate writing papers. Papers suck. The head end just says the venerated one, the Yamachi Heb. The foot end and the head end. And unfortunately the lid is really badly destroyed, so all we can know is that it definitely says Heb at the end. But yeah. So let's go to the next one. So this is an offering text that appears in a coffin constructed for a dog named Aya, which is really cool. So it is currently housed at the Musée Royal d'Art et d'Histoire in Brussels. And again, probably dates to the Middle Kingdom like the last one. So these, unfortunately, are not in great condition. Let me show you a picture of these ones. So this is the first one we looked at. This is the dog Heb, and then this is the dog Aya. And this one is very bad shape. It's literally just the text pieces that are more reconstructed. So a guy named Jean Capart described the objects as made up of two pieces with blue hieroglyphs embossed along the side. He was the first to theorize that the coffin was for a dog, not a human. But it didn't provide any additional support for this conclusion. Yes, it is. Aya is Bayek's wife's name. I did not realize that until now, because of course when I wrote this, I didn't know about Assassin's Creed. But yeah, I think that's the way that we could have spelled Aya, which is pretty cool. That is a very strange coincidence. That's amazing, actually. I love that. So interestingly, the name, when this guy Spielers translated it, he translated the name as female servant, which is not totally what it means. But there is a seated dog determinative that he replaced with a hippopotamus, which is rude and not true. So then I have translated it and translated the entire preserved part right here. So here's the little dog Aya. So this says Hetepti nisut weser neb dedu peret heru kau apedu en imat net henut es merit net Aya. And then this end says imat her netcher Aya Aya. So this says an offering that the king gave and Osiris, lord of Busiris, including an invocation offering of bread, beer, oxen, poultry for the venerated one, beloved of her mistress Aya, and then venerated before the great god Aya. I love the title beloved of her mistress. It is one of my favorite things I've ever read ever. I don't know why. I just love it. Beloved of her mistress Aya. Maybe when, so kind of morbid. We haven't done anything with Leo's cremains. They're currently sitting in our dining room with my grandparents' cremains, waiting for their burial. You found my supervisor. Oh no, Mark. You gotta ask, what does his hair look like in that one? It's not green, is it? Because he had green hair after I left. But yeah, his hair has stories. We don't know what they are, but there are stories behind that hair. He is, man. And his wife was so nice. We met his wife once. It's brown, but it's got it's shaved on one end. It's really long. And he does oh no, it's 100% real. It's all long on one side. And he would yeah. Yeah, it was definitely a shock. So Lim concludes that this name is better suited to a dog, most likely a female, considering the epithets. So the epithet Henut es merit net, or beloved of her mistress, could also technically be applied to the human. What's with classicist and weird hair? I have no idea. Yeah. I want to hear Kayla's opinion of him. So yeah, definitely send it to Kayla. Next time we go to Memphis, Kayla, I'll take you to Memphis and we can go fight him. So beloved of her mistress could be applied to a human, but Lim believes that this shows relationship between Kayla, don't. I'm not even joking you. He will freaking come after you. I hate him so much. He wants to get out of Memphis, essentially. He really hates being in Memphis. I don't think he thinks it's his highest potential. He thinks he deserves more. Oh dear God. Kayla, check your whisper. I just want to hear Kayla's opinion of his face. Yeah, so Lynn believes that this shows a relationship between a dog and his owner better because it serves to express the emotional bonds that unite a dog to his owner. And then we have another use of this epithet found in the Stela of Heptet at the Cairo Museum. And it says, a dog sleeping in the tent, a dog in bed, loved by his mistress. And so that's why I think she assumes that this loved by his mistress is most likely meant to describe a dog rather than a human. All right, the last section of literary text, and I promise I shall be quick because it's 11 o'clock and I'm tired. Oh, this is a great one. I love this one. Okay. So these are probably not all of the texts that ever talk about a dog, but these are like Kayla. I don't even think I'm added on his LinkedIn. Oh my God. I don't even think I'm on his LinkedIn. I better not be on his LinkedIn. I hope I'm not. Kayla, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't, because then he'll see that you're related to me. Probably. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe. Ooh, I don't know. You can stalk him for sure. You can read all his horrible, like, very detailed papers. Okay, so this first text is super interesting. It is supposedly a letter written by an ancient Egyptian who lives in Palestine, so in the Near East. And so even though it's written about domestic dogs in Palestine, it does Oh my god. Oh my god, that's the best description. That's the best description I've ever heard. He does look like a Squidward. He doesn't... Oh my god, he kind of talks like Squidward too. It's much like less squeaky voice, but like... Still it's a squeaky voice? How do I describe that? Also, Kayla, are you drunk from dinner? I wish I could have come to dinner tonight. I really wanted to. But I had already scheduled this. Nasal, yeah. He's actually very soft-spoken, which is always the shocker. He honestly, he's a linguist. He's very good with words, and that's like the hitters, the horrible things he said. This is, okay, so I'm just telling this one last story about him, and then we're moving on. There's a thing called the American Research Center in Egypt. Oh no, I had half a drink and then down 2 caraface of water. Oh my gosh. So there's a thing called the American Research Center in Egypt, and it's a conference that we go to. And the year before I went to Memphis, I went to this conference, kind of as a way to like try to introduce myself into the grad school, like academic world. So I went out to Tucson, Arizona, and I went to this conference, and I just so happened to run into people from Memphis there. Literally meeting my good friend Paige and Bella, who were actually 2 years ahead of me in the program. And they did not introduce me, although I think I met my main professor, like the head of the department. I think I introduced myself after her lecture. Oh, I will tell you, Mark. I will tell you after this. I met her, but I saw this professor, my advisor, in passing. And literally I was standing with these 2 friends that I had just made, and he passed by and they said, oh, that's going to be your language professor. Thought absolutely nothing of it. Obviously, 2 years down the line, we're sitting in class, and I have an RC pen, and somebody else also has an RC pen. And he was the head of like our RC chapter. And so he looked at this girl and was like, where did you get that? You're not supposed to take those from the lectures. And she goes, oh, I didn't know, blah, blah, blah. And then he saw that I was also using one, and he said, you weren't supposed to take that. And I said, I didn't take it. This is mine from when I went to the RC conference. And he's like, when did you go to an RC conference? And I said, I went last year before I started. And he goes, why didn't you introduce yourself to me? And I was like, I didn't know who you were. And he was so offended that I did not introduce myself to him, even though I had been accepted to Memphis and I essentially knew I was going to Memphis. I'm like, and he was all like offended by that. And I was like, man, sir, I did not want to do that. No, thank you. I chose Memphis for my master's because it was the only option, essentially. After I graduated, I took a gap year because I essentially ran out of time to do applications for grad school. I did my research and I applied stupidly. I applied to essentially, oh no, Mark, somehow I missed that one. Which is even more ironic because literally half of my family go and work at Indiana University. Excuse me, sir, I don't have a time machine, and I promise I did, we wouldn't have had this conversation. Exactly. I stupidly spent about $700 on applications, and I applied to every single PhD program. Like a dumbass. Because I had no idea. Because I did not have a great education at my undergrad to educate me for what was needed for grad school, essentially. So I applied to every single school, essentially, in the US that, and I actually, did I apply to UCL? No, I don't think I did. I think I was too nervous about paying for UCL. I think I was really tempted. I was also very tempted. I wanted to apply to the American University in Cairo, but my mom would not let me, essentially. But yeah, I wasted about $700 on applications to all these universities. I got denied from all of them except two. Although I know, but like, I don't know. I don't know how to describe the hold that my mother has over me mentally. But I got denied originally from the PhD program at Chicago, and but they forwarded me to a master's, and I know, Mark, I know, but she makes that face, and I know she's judging me, and so I fall to her whim. You can't control me. I'm gonna go to Cairo anyway. I know. Believe me, if I could get out of this house, I could get out of the mindset. When I'm in this house, I'm in the mindset. I can't get out of it. I can't get out of it with the risk of seeing her at any given point throughout the night or the day. Oh, no, sorry. She did not tell me that I shouldn't apply to UCL. She told me I should not apply to the American University in Cairo. I think we were back and forth. I don't know why we never finally applied to UCL. Because obviously I went to UCL. Oh, actually, I think the reason I didn't apply to UCL is because I felt extremely unprepared when I was there, mostly academically, that I didn't think I was going to be able to keep up. I was very scared about going over there because it was so much harder than American universities. And I hate to say, I like being babied. I actually don't have, I think that's also true. So again, the other reason I chose Memphis is they paid me. I did not have to spend, I got one loan. I got one loan in all 2 years. I got a paid assistantship in Memphis, which is why I picked that over Chicago, which I was going to get the second year free, but I had to pay $60,000 to begin with. So Memphis is the only option. And that's why I don't understand how they pay us, because it's so shitty. True. But I wonder how much that would have been in comparison to the 1 year that I could have paid at Chicago for $60,000, not counting rent and all of that. Jonathan, I don't have merch currently, but I'm working on it. Cross your fingers. In the next 1 to 2 months, we're starting merch in various different reasons. We need ideas for merch though, so if you're in the Discord, send me ideas for merch. We're starting off with commission-based names and hieroglyphs, which I make pretty often now, and then I'm gonna work on doing actual like merch, t-shirts, mugs, pins, stickers. I'm trying to find what the most economical place to sell them. Yes, I would love ideas. I would love designs. I would love anything, because the only idea I have currently is to put my logo on anything. And then I am in discussion with my emote artist to be using some of her emotes, but I have to figure out like how, if I would pay her for that, because she's been donating the emotes free to me. So yeah, it's not that bad. I probably should have gone. Oh well. One day. Who knows? Who knows how my life is going to turn out, because this job is slowly killing me. I was very happy to have a day off today. All right. Last 3 things, and then we might cut it short, and maybe another day we can look at other images of dogs. No, I'm going to stay on. We're going to do it. Okay, so this first text is supposedly a letter from... No. I would, if anything, I've talked about this before. If anything, I would do the public archaeology masters at UCL. That's the only option I want. I don't want anything more specialized. I want something more general, for sure. It would be the public archaeology, or a museum studies, which I don't know what museum studies is like in the UK. Snarky archaeology quote baseball caps. That's a good idea. Write it down. We need ideas. I might sell those Valentines. I think that'd be fun to sell those Valentines, or sell Valentine's Day cards that are like that, like the ones I made. So this is what this letter says. And so again, they're talking about dogs in Palestine, but it's probably reflective of what the dogs were like in Egypt. So this says, if ever a flask full of beer of Kedi, which is the word for beer, is opened and people go out to get a cup of it, there are 200 large dogs, as well as 300 jackals, 500 in all, and they stand in readiness every day at the door of the house, as often as I go out through there, smelling the liquor when the jar is opened. What if I had not the little jackal of the royal scribe of Nihu here in the house? It is it that saves me from them again and again, as often as I go out. It is ever with me as a leader upon the road. Then it barks, and I run to put the bolt on. The bolt meaning the lock on the door. So the interesting thing is that certain people have translated this word, or this Wenes Seri, to mean a little dog, even though it distinctly says Wenes and Wenes. So it is not a dog. It is apparently a jackal, in strangely. So they see here, they've incorrectly translated this as the little hound, when it literally means the little wolf or jackal. Yeah, and so that's the weird part, is that obviously he seems to be some sort of guard dog who's helping the guy who owns all the beer to get the other dog, the stray dogs and jackals away, but the specific word is not dog, it's actually jackal. And so then it's like, are they interchangeable? Like, what we talking about here? And just like, it's like, here, it's unclear if Jansen mistranslated a word or assumed that the scribe was referring to a domesticated animal, as would make sense in the narrative given the animal's protective role. Yeah, and that's 100% true, Jesse James. Like, they could be domesticated. It's just so strange to switch the word about, I guess. And then some people think this letter is totally fictional, so it might not actually mean anything, because the official indicates he's from a city called Kenken-en-Ta, which means the castigation of the land, which is just like not a real place. It might have been a joke. So the last 2 are stories, which I'll quickly summarize for you and then read out the sections that we talk about specifically. So the first one is called The Tale of Two Brothers. It is preserved in the Papyrus de Orbigny and the British Museum, copied by a scribe named Enana, around the 19th dynasty. So the tale is based on a myth that involves 2 gods of the Sinopolite, or the dog gnome of Middle Egypt, and it reflects a conflict between 2 towns. The story involves 2 brothers named Anubis and Bata. And they're most likely based on the gods Anubis and the pastoral god Bata, whose cult was most likely a ram or a bull. In the story, the wife of Anubis attempts to seduce his younger brother, and when she is rejected, she lies to her husband. Anubis tries to kill his brother for trying to seduce and beat his wife. Bata ends up escaping and explains to his brother that he did not do what his wife said that he did. When he learns the truth, Anubis is ashamed of how he treated his brother, and he says he went to his home, his hand on his head and smeared with dirt. When he reached the house, he killed his wife and cast her to the dogs and sat mourning for the younger. So this is another example of a presence of a packs of these pariah or kind of stray dogs or like mongrels in ancient Egypt, that he would cast her to the dogs, essentially meaning casting her body to feral animals. And so while most of the images that we talk about in my corpus are these privileged animals who are living in the high society, there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of animals that were not kind of accepted as a personal animal and were more just kind of roaming the hills of Egypt. The final story is my absolute favorite ancient Egyptian story, and it's called the story of the Doomed Prince. A dog is actually a main character in this story. It is preserved on the back of the Papyrus Harris 500, also from the British Museum, and it was copied in the early 19th dynasty, but composed probably in the late 18th dynasty. It concerns the adventures of a young Egyptian crown prince. Unfortunately, the end of this tale has not been preserved, and it makes me very sad, so we don't know how the tale ends. It probably was a happy ending, but we're not 100% sure. Wasn't Anubis basically worshipped to ward off from people getting their corpses eaten by wild dogs and such? Not that I know of. Anubis was essentially the Hermes, if you know Greek mythology, of ancient Egypt. Anubis was one who would kind of go back and forth between the living and the dead and bring people to the afterlife. And he was kind of he was a protector of, he was also like the patron god of mummification. So he would look over people as they were being mummified and being preserved. And like, so at a secondary point, yes, he was protecting bodies from the possibility of being destroyed or eaten, but it's not as specific as that, at least that I've heard. So the story begins, this is one of my favorite stories because it's just so funny. It's just so absolutely hysterical. Essentially, the king of Egypt is very unhappy that he does not yet have a son. He prays to the gods, and his wife finally gives birth to a son. And the 7 Hathor goddesses, which are essentially like an oracle of some sort and would predict the fate of every child at birth, they prophesy that the new prince will be killed by either a crocodile, a snake, or a dog. The king then isolates his son to protect him. Very Rapunzel. Sticks him in a tower, essentially, to protect him from the world. Now, and then this is the text. So, now when the boy had grown, he went up to his roof and he saw a greyhound. And this is how it's been translated. It literally just means a hound or a dog. A chesem. Following a man who was walking on the road. He said to his servant, who was beside him, "What is that walking behind the man who is coming along the road?" He told him, "It is a chesem." The boy said to him, "Have one like it brought to me." Then the servant went and reported it to his majesty. His majesty said, "Bring him a little puppy," essentially a small trembler, so implying that it was a young dog, "so that his heart will not grieve." So they brought him a chesem. So literally, the king it was prophesied that this kid was gonna die by a crocodile, a dog, or a snake. And this dad just lets him have a dog. It's just so stupid. It's just like there's no explanation as to why the king was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But the prince raises the dog, and throughout the story, the dog actually, surprisingly, does not kill him. After accepting his ultimate faith and just realizing like he just needs to go out into the world, he travels to a place called Nahrin, and he eventually marries a princess. Literally, she is actually a princess in a tower, and he marries her by proving that he can jump all the way to her window in the tower. Because he doesn't tell him that he's a prince. He just tells him that that's just the contest to win her hand. Then he tells his wife of his 3 fates, and she goes, "Have the dog that follows you killed." He said to her, "What foolishness! I will not let my dog be killed, whom I raised when it was a puppy." And so they use here the word ser, meaning small one. When it was small, essentially, is what it's saying. So she began to watch her husband very much and did not let him go out alone. So obviously the prince doesn't care about his fate, about dying, and so the wife, is still actually concerned, and she actually wakes up in the middle of the night and she stops him from being murdered by a snake in his sleep. And then shortly after, the prince went walking with his dog, and then his dog began to speak, saying, "I am your fate." Thereupon, he ran before it. He reached a lake. He descended into the water in flight from the dog. Now, this sentence has been translated different ways. It's either assuming that the dog assumes the power of speech, so either that he suddenly starts talking to him, or the dog it might also have been that the dog bit him, essentially. Because it could be seized upon the mouth, essentially meaning like he bit him. So then unfortunately the end of the story is that the 3rd fate, the crocodile, tries to bite him, and then the story ends, and we have absolutely no idea what happens. We can presume, based off of other stories, that it probably was a happy one. There's probably some sort of moral at the end of it, but we don't have the end of the story, and it makes me so sad. It's my favorite, but my least favorite story. The last 2 things, which I will very quickly say. In Herodotus's book 2 of his histories, he mentions, "In whatever house a cat has died by a natural death, all those who dwell in this house shave their eyebrows only, but those in whose houses a dog has died shave their whole body and also their head." Indicating that the Egyptians loved dogs more than cats. I'll fight that. And then the last thing, in Plutarch's book Moralia on Isis and Osiris, he says, "For even at the present day, the people of Lycaonopolis are the only Egyptians that eat the sheep, because the wolf, whom they worship, does the same. And the Oxyrhynchists, on one day when the people of Siniopolis were eating a fish called the Oxyrhynchus, collected dogs and sacrificed and ate them as victims. And from this occasion, setting to war, they handled each other roughly, and afterwards being punished for it by the Romans, were equally ill-treated." So this is essentially saying that there's 2 towns, one that worship a fish and one that worship a dog, and one day the people from Dogtown were eating the fish that the other people are worshipped, and so then in exchange, the people from the fish town started eating dogs. Who knows if this is true, but it could be. Who knows? And oh my gosh, we're done. All right, my loves. Very quickly, if you would like to, I think, thank you, Mark. While I just figure out if we're gonna go raid somebody, if y'all would like to pick a number, where the heck did that go? Pick a number between 2 and 492. And I'll show you a picture of a dog if I have the picture. And don't ask me why it's 2, not 1. It's complicated. But yeah, you can pick a number from 2 to 492. Okay, we're gonna do these in order. So this is how I sorted all my images, because you can't put images in an Excel spreadsheet, which is stupid. Number 1. I'm gonna do that just because it's here. Oh wait, no, you click number 1. I don't care. Here's number 1. This is number 1, Mark. because you picked number 1. All right. Let's go to 15 because that's closer. Oh, bummer. Don't pick anything that early. We don't have an image. This is a very interesting image. It's in Pushkin. It's in Russia. Look at these doggos with their little scary teeth and can you guys see that? Hopefully. Let's see, 217. Pick another image, Jesse. You just happen to pick, unfortunately, at the very, very beginning. These are all in chronological order, remember? So those are all, 420, blaze it. Okay, perfect. We'll find the 420. There are some ones that don't have images, but hopefully most of these will. 217. Oh, look at that baby. This is an agricultural scene. I remember this. Oh, this is one of the... Oh, this is an interesting one. Here's a little boy dog. You can see his little penis. He's very cute. So it's from the relief. It's a relief from the tomb of Ankhotep. It's actually in the Louvre, this piece. But if you look here, here's the whole context of the scene that he's in. So there are all these goats, and then there's a goat giving birth, and the dog is watching it, possibly to try to eat it, but I don't know. I don't know what the pattern of male behavior dogs is. But he's watching it. But also, there's also this guy with a stick over his head, and I don't know what's happening. I guess there's a high possibility that, like, the dog is trying to eat it, and this guy's trying to hit the dog so he doesn't eat it? I don't know. Maybe? Maybe? But he's so cute! Oh, that's probably true. That makes sense. But look how cute he is! That's a good one. Alright, 420. Blaze it. Give some other numbers. We gotta look at a couple of them before I absolutely fade out of existence. 420. Uh-oh. Oh, you're in luck. Oh, it's a very blurry image, though. Oh! You picked the mystery dog! Is this the mystery dog? Oh, no, this isn't the total mystery dog. So, Mark picked a relief from the tomb of Ken. And I was told there's a dog in this scene, but it's so hard to see from the only image I have of it. But I'm pretty sure it's that. I'm pretty sure it's this little thing. But it's so hard to see. I wonder what my Excel spreadsheet says of this. What number is that? Whoa! 4... What does this say? Relief of 3 registers. Oh wait, that might not be the right one. Tomb of... Oh, I'm in the wrong place. Sorry, I was in the wrong thing. Relief of dog under the chair of the father and mother in front of the remains of a banquet. So yeah. So, really bad image, but that's what I was given. And then when I found I think this is one of those where I found like somebody writing about the dog, and then I had to find an image later, and this is all I could find, and I was a little confused because that happened a lot where they would write down that they found a dog, but they wouldn't give an image, and I would have to hunt that down later. And then it's like, this isn't the total mystery dog. There is another one that I know it has to be on this wall. I know the exact wall that this dog is supposed to be in on this tomb, and I cannot find him. Like, I have the wall, but I don't have it. 365. Oh, you're in luck. Oh, look at that one. This is first intermediate period. Or no, this is third intermediate period, I think. Oh, poor little line drawing of this dog. He's a cute one though. I like him. Oh, 300. Oh yes. Oh yes. Very simple. Oh no, that's 301. Oh, here's 300. This is the one of the ones I was talking to you guys about. We actually looked at one of these. So this is this little dog, and he's just sitting behind an archer, and I believe this is supposed to be like a heat, some sort of heat source. But he's all the way down here. I don't even know if you can see my cursor down here. In this huge wall relief of wrestling, and then them defeating like a fortress. And let me find the second one. There's another tomb also in Beni Hassan that has the exact same battle scene. And I just gotta find it. It's close. Where is it? Oh, it's here. So look at this battle scene. I'm gonna zoom in so it's bad. It's not as clear. But there's this battle scene, and then there's this battle scene with the wrestling on top of it. And actually I think there's a third one too. I don't know where the third one is. There's definitely a third one, because this is the condensed version. There's two ones that are exactly the same size of the wall. No. So it's one is balked. What's the other one? There is another one. I know there is. Oh, here it is. Nope, that's not it. I'm close. Here we go. Nope, I'm close. It's this one. This one is even more similar. No. But some things I know. Some things I know a little bit. Funny enough, backstory about this one. This is one of the things that they thought was a dog's name. But this was the only image they had to go upon. But now when you actually look at it in the tomb, this name is not meant to be for the dog. This name is actually meant to be for the dude. So this is the name that I actually got to remove from the dog's name list, because I was like, this name is not for that dog. This name is for the dude. Any other numbers, or do we want to find who's? I'm sleeping. Who's live right now? If Kenny is still live, Kenny's live. We should probably raid Kenny, because it's her stream anniversary, and she's the sweetest. I know, I'm very tired. Science is also streaming, and Fetchbug's also streaming. Do I have another favorite? Yeah, I want to find the useless dog. I'm trying to remember what time period he is. Look at these guys though. These are I always forget about these guys. I don't even care about the dog, because the dog is a shitty image, but look at their bodies. Look at their bodies. They're so weirdly shaped. It's so funny. I'm gonna try to find the useless dog, because he's my personal favorite of the long legs for sure. No, the useless dog is not in the new kingdom, or the old kingdom. He's in this one's a cute one. These are very interesting, because these are like, I essentially determined that there's like a trope for these Nubian type. Okay, interesting. This is one of the least preserved places, but they have arguably the most dogs in one single place, because essentially this is a huge scene of all of these soldiers just marching, and every single person has a dog with them, essentially. Nope, I can't. If I remember the name of his owner, I could probably I can find it easier. I can go here to names and look up, find use. Let's only do. God dang it! I know what he looks like. It's not that one. He's on a Stella, so I do like this one, even though it seems like he's been carved out, which is sad. But I'm pretty sure he's on a Stella from, and this poor guy got gouged, indirectly, obviously. I love this one. Look how short and squat he looks. And then this one has these two little ones, which this one just seems to be added secondarily, which is funny. Yeah, a long-term goal is I would like to make this a searchable database, but I have absolutely no idea. Look at this one. This is the one who means son of the moon, and there's our little Anku as well, and there's his brother, because that's on the other. It's in the same tomb. Here is the little boy and playing. You can tell he's a child because he has the side lock, which is super cute. Here, look at all the dog figurines. There's this one, and then this one, this one. All of these. Also, these are like hedgehogs, which are super cute. All of these. This is another one that is, there's this one. There's that one that we looked at. These are probably molded. The thing with faience is that it's not actually stone, so you have to like heat it up, and so you would probably put it in a mold and press it into it. What would the name be in Egyptian? Oh, useless. I can't remember now. Once I found the picture of it, I hate everything because I know that I have this. No, he's not that one. No. The thing about, oh my god, I forgot about this one. Look how cute this one is. Oh, the wall art. It's limestone, so it would be okay. Also, here's an image of a kid sitting on their lap, which is pretty, again, kind of uncommon. This is usually made out of limestone and sandstone, which is relatively soft, I believe. It would definitely take a little bit of effort. Some portions are more breakable than others. Also, because I hate to say it, I gotta show you. Here's all the dogs in King Tut's tomb, because there literally are bajillions. This entire chest has dogs on either side of it, all attacking all of these Nubians. We got more dogs on the lid of this thing. We have a dog attacking cows on his dagger hilt. We have a dog attacking an ostrich on his fan. We have another dog underneath his carriage on, I think this is a belt buckle. And I think I've found more. I think I keep finding more dogs in King Tut's tomb. Also, if you've never heard of the Tomb of Maya, she's the coolest. She was the maidservant, or essentially midwife, of Tutankhamun. And she had her own tomb, and it's beautiful. And it just recently got published by a Frenchman, so it's all in French. But, oh. It flipped. But here she is taking care of baby, Slimeye baby, not really baby, Tutankhamun. And there's a lovely little mama dog on the bottom. Alright, I just want to find Useless. Useless, where are you? I love you. I love you, Useless. I'm going crazy. Is that him? No. I'm going crazy. Why don't you come along? He's not in the New Kingdom though, which means I've missed him, which must mean he's in the Old Kingdom, but I could have sworn he was in the Middle Kingdom. Although he could have been in an intermediate period. Maybe that's why. Also, these are those tombstones that I talked about. This is one of the only ones we actually have a picture of. But here's another one. And here's another one. It looks very similar to that one. And there's actually one more, which is, oh, two more, which is very interesting. I'm going to find this thing before it kills me. And we are gonna raid Kenny because it's her streamiversary and I love her. Where is this? I literally know exactly what it looks like. Because I've shared this so many times with people because I think it's so funny that the poor dog is called I Don't Like It. Or no, not I Don't Like It, Useless. Oh my god. Where is it? I think this is one of the mystery dogs, but that's that one I was able to find. This is, I'm just 99% sure that's a frog. I don't know why. But I think that one's a frog. It's not that one. It's not any of these. Oh my god, I'm keeping y'all awake. For those who just want to go to sleep. Because I can't find this gosh dang dog and I could just search it a different way. Alright, fine. We're going the old-fashioned way. Although this won't help me because I don't have the name. I don't have the number. How could you not find that word? Apparently I didn't write the actual translation of... I also didn't even write I don't like it. Alright, y'all. I can't find it. I have it on my phone somewhere because I like to show people which one it is, but I apparently cannot find it in my own corpus. Well then. God damn it, I'm so mad. I just wanted to show you poor little Useless. It's a really horrible picture too. It like doesn't even... You can't even see. It's not that one, but he's a cute one too. And even though I stopped talking, I'm still looking. All right. I can't find it. I'm so mad. This is the mystery dog. This is the mystery dog. I have absolutely no idea where it is. It's on this wall. I know it is. It's just, it's not obvious in this horrible picture. All right. That is where we're going to end. I really, for the life of me, hope you enjoyed this because this is my entire life for so long.